Really glad you came. This is Nancy Adams, who created this. Hi.
Yeah, man.
Is there anything you could talk to us about?
Christy found out.
Good evening, everyone. Would you please join us in a salute to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2019 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2018, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Adams. Here. Mr. Daffis.
Here.
Mr. Lembrick.
Here.
Mr. McGehee.
Here.
Mayor DeLuca.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas the desire of the governing body to comply with the provisions of this act, same time conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise described by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 5th, 2019 meeting of the Maplewood Township Committee. I'm going to run down the agenda. If anyone would like a copy of the agenda, you can come up to this table here, and we have copies here that you can take. So we are going to start off, start off the evening with Women's History Month proclamation, and we invite all the women to come on up to the podium when Ms. Adams goes up there to read the proclamation to join her, so in celebrating Women's History Month. Then we will have our first public comment period, and we invite anyone who wants to come up and speak. If you hear about the plastic bag, that would not be the time to come up. I'll tell you when that's going to be. But that would be the time to come up to speak about other items that are on the agenda. We'll have our Board of Health meeting. We have that monthly, and then we will go into ordinances. The first ordinance is an ordinance dealing with parking spaces or new electric car charging spaces over in the Woodland lot. If you'd like to speak on that, we'll ask if anyone wants to speak at that time, and you'd come up. The second ordinance on final passage is the issue of the plastic bags and the paper bags. If you want to speak on that, that would be the time to come up and speak on that. There may be a number of people that want to speak on that. Normally, people line up, or they sit in the row here, or you can stay where you are and come up when I ask if you'd like to speak. That when you do speak, you tell us your name and your address. So I will guide you when we get to that. I will ask if there's anyone who wants to speak on that ordinance, and that will be when you come on up. Then we have a number of new ordinances that we'll be introducing. One is to create a trust fund called Maplewood Cares. The second is to amend the ordinance for the Community Board on Police to add an additional member and put some age restrictions on the youth member. We have a stop sign ordinance for Florida Street, a stop sign ordinance for Plymouth Place, and then we will be making some changes in the ordinance for the noise ordinance. And then we have two more new ordinances that we're doing. One is to establish employment positions and salaries for 2019. And the second is dealing with issues with the certificate of continued occupancy when there's a transfer of property. We have two discussion items. The first is a zoning permit application that we're thinking of implementing, and the second is creating a pop-up pocket park at 1866-1872 Springfield Avenue. We have our consent agenda, which consists of a number of resolutions, budget transfers, temporary appropriation, bills and claims, contracts, and then minutes of February 19th. We'll have our second public comment, so if you heard something during the meeting and you want sort of last licks, that's the time to come back up, and you can speak to us again. Then we will have a budget discussion, so that will be after the last public comment. If anybody's here to speak about the budget, you can come up at the last public comment period, and then we will be talking about the budget based on some new information that we've received. We have administrative reports, and then we have reports from our elected officials here, and then we will adjourn the meeting. So again, our first order of business is going to be a proclamation that Ms. Adams will read, and that's on Women's History Month. And we invite all the women to come up to the microphone here. Yeah, come on, let's go. All the women, come on up.
Yeah, if we could have previously elected and serving women up front, because they're going to be participating in the reading of the proclamation. I'm going to take this out because it's typical pain in the neck. Liz, what's going on here? Could you make this somewhere? Thank you. All right, I won't take it out. All right, cool. So before we begin, I want to thank everyone, first of all, for coming. It's great to see some familiar faces from days past sitting up on here on the dais and from our neighboring community. I also wanted to just read out of, just keep this in mind, our population of Maplewood is 52% women, female, I should say. But I am the 7th woman to serve on the governing body. So we need more women involved out there. We need more women running for office because that's quite a discrepancy. But I just want to name the people who have served, the women elected officials who've served in Maplewood. The first woman elected to the Township Committee was Theodora, I always knew her as Theo Bucklad, who served from 1988 to 1990. Connie Cosgrove served from 91 to 93. Ellen Davenport served from 93 to 1990. Okay, to 2001. Got it, sorry. They got a whole paragraph on you. I'm trying to limit it down. She was also the first and only woman to serve as mayor of Maplewood. Susanna Gibbons served on the committee from 94 through 96. Celia King, thank you for coming, served from 96 through 2002 and was elected vice mayor in 98. Kathy Leventhal, wonderful Kathy Leventhal, served from 2003 to 15 and was vice deputy mayor from 2009 to 2015. And India Larios served on the Township Committee from 2012 to 2017. Now, I wanted to touch on an issue that's been brought up locally and that is also important to acknowledge. So I just want to give a little history lesson here and some clarification. In the lead up to the 100th anniversary of women gaining the right to vote, images from the 1913 suffrage march on Washington, D.C. have begun to make their rounds on social media. Both then and now, African American women have been erased from the narrative of women's suffrage in America. The proclamation we're about to read does not address this issue, although it will in the future, but I wanted to give it some attention first. Since the mid-19th century, African American women fought for the right to vote while facing discrimination from white suffragists who did not want their movement associated with women of color. Carrying the double burden of Blackness and womanhood, African American women approached the suffrage movement with different objectives than their white counterparts. Painfully aware of the restrictions on Black male voting in the South and the social, political, and economic challenges facing their communities, Black women saw their enfranchisement as an opportunity for community uplift, as well as personal recognition of citizenship. The question of whether votes for women meant all women or exclusively white women dates to the beginning of the suffrage movement. Though many suffragists were part of the abolitionist movement to end slavery, they were not immune to racial prejudice. Nevertheless, Black suffragists rallied. They encouraged African American women's groups and clubs from across the country to participate in the 1913 march in DC, and they did. The opportunity for greater political voice drew African American women to the suffrage movement. They supported the movement for its message of gender equality and potential benefits to their own communities while calling out harmful ideologies. From meetings to marches, African American suffragists fought for the vote while also fighting white supremacy. The National American Woman Suffrage Association's fear of offending Southern suffragists in their goal of getting the women right to vote, as well as the leadership's own prejudices, silenced Black suffragists and prevented the organization from seriously considering or adopting the intersectional perspectives women of color brought to the movement. Nevertheless, Black women were relentless in their attempts to make meaningful engagement with the suffrage movement, not only because they believed in the cause, but because they knew it was important that they were present and fighting for their rights, both as women and as African Americans. So I just wanted to put that out there for everybody to understand. So if it's okay, You're welcome. With everyone here who is elected, I've assigned little parts for you because I thought that was nice. You don't need to keep hearing it. Breaks it up a little. I'm an actor back in the day, you know. So I will call you up as it comes up. I'll start it off. Whereas for more than 2 centuries, our nation has grown under the simple creed that each of us is created equal. It is a notion that makes America unlike any other place on earth, a country where no matter where you come from or what you look like, you can go as far as your talents will take you. And Mayor Davenport.
Without my glasses.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Whereas Women's History Month is a time to remember those who fought and those who fought and died to make that freedom as real for our daughters as for our sons. Written out the promise of the franchise, there were women who reached up to close the gap between America and what it could be. They were driven by a faith that our union could extend true equality to every citizen willing to claim it. Year after year, visionary women met and marched and mobilized to prove what should have been self-evident. They took a meeting at Seneca Falls and grew it to a movement that touched every community and took on our highest institutions. And after decades of slow, steady, extraordinary progress, women have written equal opportunity into the law again and again, giving generations of girls a future worthy of their potential. And no glasses.
That was good with no glasses. Kathy.
Whereas that legacy of the change is all around us. Women are more than half of our population, nearly half of our nation's workforce, and more than half of our college graduates. But even now, too many women feel the weight of discrimination on their shoulders. They face a pay gap at work, or higher premiums for health insurance, or inadequate options for family leave. These issues affect all of us, and failing to address them holds our country back.
It struck me, the part about family leave that Kathy read, because we have just signed new family leave legislation in this state that drastically expands family leave insurance for everyone in New Jersey. So I just wanted to put that out there. And now my spot, I lost my spot, okay. Okay, whereas medical research has for decades focused on men, ignoring women, and particularly women of color, almost entirely. In fact, medical research in many areas, including cardiovascular disease, which actually kills more women than men, often includes few women subjects or doesn't report results by gender. This disparity in research by gender has resulted in misdiagnoses and incorrect treatment and death of women. And
whereas recent times have brought to light the sexual harassment and abuse imposed for decades on women in the workforce, holding them prisoners to power and limiting their ability to advance and thrive in their careers. And whereas women and men are united through the hashtag Time's Up and the hashtag Me Too movements to fight for women's safety by creating an environment that allows more and more women to courageously speak their truths and to come forward to call out their abusers. And Janine.
Whereas millions of women and men across the world have turned out in a protest of a United States president who has objectified women, bragged of sexual assault, and set the stage for women to open up about their past experiences of sexual harassment, assault, and discrimination. And
It's been a while since you read a whereas.
It's very true.
Whereas while the midterm election brought more women than ever to the U.S. Congress, women are still not fully or adequately represented at the top tables of organizations and corporations, nor on local, state, and national legislative and governing bodies, and are therefore not being heard or listened to, nor is a woman's very important perspective properly represented when decisions and laws are being made. And
whereas our history shows that when we couple grit and ingenuity with our beliefs, there is no barrier we cannot overcome. We can stay true to our founding creed that in America, all things should be possible for all people. That spirit is what called our mothers and grandmothers to fight for a world where no wall or ceiling could keep their daughters from their dreams. And although we still have much to do, and we need more women running for office to make our opportunities brighter, we recognize the accomplishments of women, all women, who fought for our rights in the past and pledge to them now to keep advocating for equality. And
whereas Women's History Month is also not adequately recognized each year, nor the accomplishments of women in history adequately focused on in our schools during the month of March and otherwise. And whereas South Orange and Maplewood community leaders are working together to finally shine the spotlight on Women's History Month with events and promotion of local women-owned businesses to celebrate women's empowerment and focus on women in history and who fought for our rights and whose lives changed the course of history.
Now therefore, Mayor Vic DeLuca and I, Nancy Adams, and the rest of the Township Committee do hereby proclaim March 2019 as Women's History Month in the Township of Maplewood.
We need photos. Photos. Assistant Administrator. Yeah, like the whole
Group of us.
We should probably, yeah, why don't we go? Wait, I didn't see that.
I'll tell you. All right.
I see you on Facebook.
Hi, Celia. Good to see you. Doing well. Thank you.
I don't think you can all leave. I think you have to stay here for the rest of the meeting. Okay, we are going to get started with the balance of the meeting. The first item is the public comment. If there's anyone who would like to address the Township Committee on issues other than the plastic and paper bags, if you'd like to come up, can we get this turned?
Sure, absolutely.
1 second. Okay, if we could just have your name and address.
John Sparrow, 19 Buckingham, Maplewood. Been in Maplewood my whole life. And I'm only 70 years old, so I've been here since I was born in Maplewood. I know I was a mailman here for 30 years. And my concern is what's going on with the parking in the whole town. It seems to me like there's been an overabundance of parking permits for the commuters given out. You can't even see the park anymore. Donnell Road is covered with cars. Maplewood Avenue, the street the library is on, you can't even find a parking spot anymore. When I come down to the town to go to the bank or the library or anywhere, and there's no parking. And I'm paying big taxes on Buckingham, which you know, and I'm a resident here. Now, I called up Milburn about a parking permit, and they told me it's $700, and they use the tax department. They don't give out parking permits to anybody that doesn't live in Milburn. They make sure that you have tax reference. Maplewood doesn't do that. My friend called up here the other day, and they told him, well, you don't live in Maplewood, but do you have a friend that'll let them use your address? Maybe I'm a whistleblower. This is what $275. Now, I was a mailman. It was $275 30 years ago. And I know if you go to New York, it costs $100 to drive your car. And everybody wants that train because New York is the financial capital of the world. We all know that. And there's big money to be made. But $275 is not enough. So if Milburn is paying $700, I think you should raise the fees for all these people. You can't even go up a Baker Street is the other one that's covered. And now they're parking up the hills here. I would propose to build maybe a parking garage on the other side of town and jitney bus these people over daily. And I see the jitney buses, I followed them, there's only 2-3 people, and they'll idle for 5-6 hours up there waiting for the trains to come in. And that diesel fuel is highly carcinogenic. I have gone to diesel school. I don't care if it's biodiesel or any diesel. Matter of fact, they want to outlaw diesel cars in Europe, if you have heard about it, because of the carcinogenic fumes. And they'll idle for hours up there by the train station. I won't dare go from Buckingham to the library that way because everybody's double and triple parked there waiting for their loved ones to get off the train at night between 4 and 5 o'clock. It's gridlocked. And on the other side, it's always been that way. If you park along the train tracks, people are waiting for their loved ones to come in and they line up there. They won't even move. They got to get you to go. So, I mean, it's the quality of life is being destroyed in this side of town for people like me that I'm retired now, but if I want to go to the library during the day, it's impossible until I have to go till after 4 o'clock when the school lets out because there's no spots. And the employees and a few people take up the parking in the library. I want to go to King's to shop. I can't get a spot. Yesterday I had to go to the bank. I couldn't get a park at Wells Fargo. I had to park all the way up at the top of Ridgewood Road and walk down because them streets are all commuter people too, I guess. I don't know who they are, but I'm sure I've spoken with Mr. Rowe about this, and he said he checks everyone, but it's not being done through the proper tax department to verify, because these people are using other people's addresses, I believe. Like in Milburn, they make sure you have a tax number, a tax house, and you're a resident of Milburn. They built a parking garage, you know that, in downtown Milburn for the people, because they particularly don't want people in different cars parking in front of their house every day. I wouldn't want it if I'm living on Maplewood Avenue. I don't know who these people are. Could be criminals, anybody. But all along Maplewood Avenue, from the blinker light down to the bank, it's parking. And on Donnell, they throw their trash out now. Right. If you go down between the firehouse and Parker, they just throw their coffee cups, lunch, everything out. I told Mr. Rowe about it. He said he's going to take care of it, but it's still the same because we had the snowstorm. I'm sure he'll take care of it. He called me back and verified it. He couldn't believe it, that there was so much coffee and they throw their bottles, water bottles. One day I was coming home and they're using underneath that bridge, the trestle bridge. I had to call New Jersey Transit about this. They went up there and drew graffiti on Parker Avenue Bridge in Jefferson. And they told me Maplewood has nothing to do with transit. I had to call transit. It took them about a month. They finally came and cleaned it off. They put some scribble. Then the kids came back again. They even put some curse words on the walls underneath. That was taken care of. But
so let me respond to some of your comments.
Yes.
the clerk's office is responsible for giving out the permit parking. It is just for Maplewood residents. They must produce driver's license and a registration, a car registration. So those are, now, there are people who have driver's license still in New York. They've just moved here. Sometimes they have a car still registered in New York. Oftentimes, until they're here for a while and those plates change, it may appear that they live in New York, but they actually live here, and then we get a backup ID. But we'll take a look at it. Whoever told you that they called here and they said, if you have a friend, use that. We will go back and remind our people that that's not the case. Whether it was said or not, we'll just do some reinforcement.
And I'm not lying about it. It was a good friend of mine, and
okay,
it's kind of a whistle, a bit.
Yeah,
I had a feel.
Yeah.
I think
so let me get to the fee. We did increase the fee this year. We are looking to increase the fee every year a little bit more. What we have found over the years as the New York economy improves, parking gets harder in Maplewood because more people are employed. If you look at the trains, over years you can tell when there's a downtime in the economy in New York because there's seats available. When there's a good, economic picture, there's no seats available, and that's where we are right now. There's more people than ever taking the train. So it is a function of being a train town. You're right about the parking at the library. It is difficult. My wife was there today. She told me the same thing you're saying, so I understand what you're talking about. We do try to move those cars. There are 3-hour parking there, half-hour parking. Our parking enforcement people are out there. The cars on Maplewood Avenue are not commuter cars. They're shoppers or merchants, and those are time limited to 2 hours, and we do give tickets out and move those cars. So
I'm talking about Maplewood Village. I'm talking about from Yorkwood Savings all the way down to the blinker light to park.
Yeah, no, those are except for the first 3 houses, which is time limited.
Right.
After that, it's commuters. And that's been a very long-standing place for commuters to park.
If you get a truck coming one way, it's difficult. You have to stop and let them
difficult.
go. The road is not that wide, especially this parking on Denell.
Right.
I come through. I use now if I had to stop, a big truck comes barreling down the other way. You got to stop. You got to let them go. It'll take the whole side of your car.
So I think we're continuing to look at. I think you brought up some good points. I know there's some other people that want to speak, so we're going to have to cut this. But
Robert Rowe thought that might be a good idea, though, if you could find some land over there to build a parking garage.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Jitney works to put people. We've been looking. Believe me, we've been looking at all kinds of solutions: parking decks in the village, parking decks, and bringing people over, parking them at the pool, and Jitneying over. It's.
Would ease up the congestion here, like especially, I know between 4 and 6 o'clock, it's like.
It's difficult because everybody's coming home.
Coming in, and then the snowstorm, it took me 3 hours to get from Maplewood Library to Buckingham.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about the snowstorm in November. That was a special day. But
it was hectic that
okay,
day.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? You all want to come up? Yeah. All three at one time? All right.
I want to clarify, we're not speaking to an agenda item, is that okay?
That's okay.
All right.
Just give us your name and your addresses,
yeah,
okay?
sure. Ben Lipkin, 100 Harvard Avenue in Maplewood. So I am not only a member of the Columbia High School Environmental Club, but I'm also a member of an organization called Sunrise Movement. So the reason I'm here is I want to really urge the Maplewood Township Committee to pass a resolution that would endorse federal Green New Deal legislation. That is specifically why we're here. I actually have been able to draft some, so I would look forward to relaying that to you. I'd also like to reiterate that this does not require any structural changes for the township itself. It's merely a symbolic resolution. And really what's being addressed here is also the urgency of, us so we are all seniors. So this is the future that we're facing. And I think a lot of people are really very seriously concerned about the future, considering climate change. So,
Let's let the other two speak. Do you two want to speak? And then we can talk. Go ahead. Just tell us who you are.
Okay, I'm Olive Fretz Howard. I'm at 40 Fernwood Road. and also 41 Marie Place in Maplewood. Hannah Silver and I are both the co-presidents of the Columbia High School Environmental Club. And in the years past, we've kind of been doing more small-scale Columbia-based things. But this year, when the 12-year diagnosis kind of came out about climate change, things got a lot more serious. We got a much bigger turnout at the meeting when everyone was just like really scared. So luckily we got to get involved with Ben and the Sunrise Movement, and that's been really wonderful, and they have really big plans. So yeah, an endorsement would be wonderful. That's basically all I have to say.
Thank you.
So as mentioned and introduced by Olive, I'm Hannah Silver. I live at 2 Kendall Avenue, South Orange, New Jersey. And I think one of the fundamental morals that are implemented within Maplewood is, think globally, act locally. And, you can see that with the Women's History Month proclamation to combat sexism. We have our proclamation, and the activism embedded in this town, I think, leads to a natural trajectory of acting to combat climate change. And I think the Green New Deal and the symbolic resolution, if approved, would continue on this path and really show the students that are fearful that come to the environmental club, and we come together and we collect recycling and we clean up our town and we have our cleanups in the river, but it is a concrete way to show that there's solidified systematic change and it goes beyond our town. So I think it's very important for both, us, the town itself, future generations, loved ones, whomever, to show that we are truly caring and that we truly are making a dedicated effort to combat climate change.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to ask Ms. Adams to respond.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear you say this. I actually brought it up, the Green New Deal, a couple months ago, I think it was, when it was first brought up, even before AOC was sworn in. I feel like it was December or something. But regardless, we did pass a resolution in support of the Green New Deal. So we're with you on that. And I think we're also on the Environmental Advisory Committee for the Township. I don't think we have a student liaison that we usually have every year. So we'd really appreciate that. Plus there's the Green Team, the chair of which is right over here. And Green Team does a lot of public relation, getting information out and events and a lot more than that. But we would love to have some involvement on both those committees of the students. Locally, as you may know, one of the main reasons for the restriction on gas-powered leaf blowers that we passed 2 years ago was because of the damage they do to our environment on a very hyper-local level, and in exactly neighbors of them, what's being breathed, what's being blown around, and the negative health impacts to hearing and breathing of the social justice issue with those workers that are strapping them on for 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's a litany of things I could go into that. The plastic bag ordinance, as you know, is on for tonight. And we're also talking about green infrastructure initiatives to take to deal with stormwater runoff. So we're talking about a lot of things locally, but we could always use suggestions. We can't research, the 5 of us can't research everything ourselves. So, and then just try to get our professionals in town to work on it. But I don't think you'll get any disagreement from this body on your initiative, unless I'm wrong.
Mr. McGehee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am the liaison to the Green Team, and as we already said, Ms. Woods is here. We are going to be working on an education, assuming that this ordinance passed tonight. We're going to be working on an education plan to help our residents understand what it means about no plastic bags and eventually the fee that will occur. We need bodies and we need help. So before you leave this chamber, I'd love for you to connect with Ms. Woods so that we can have that conversation. And also as members of the Sustainability Committee as well, we have some pretty significant legislation coming up for our town, 5 other towns as well, energy aggregation. And that's something we could also use your help with as well. So this is a very green dais, and we appreciate you coming out this evening.
And also I would say if you could review the resolution that we passed that Ms. Adams talked about, and if there's things that aren't addressed in there that you think we could go further, certainly if you send us some ideas, I think you can tell we're very receptive to it, and it was certainly our intention to endorse the Green New Deal, but if there's things we can do or if things have evolved, we'd welcome that. And you can, either give that to Ms. Fritzen or you can email it to us. We're pretty easily found.
Thank you. Come up to the mic, okay? Come up to the microphone.
I know we've considered this means to the end of opening a line of communication between specifically the students at our school and the township, considering this, because I am aware that there are people and many committees and coalitions working on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee at this time? Okay, we're going to close the first public comment period. There will be another one later. And of course, if you're here on the paper bags and plastic bags, there'll be a time to speak. And that's going to come up shortly. But first, we're going to have our monthly Board of Health meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws Act of 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on a bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2019 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2018, and by filing said notice the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams? Here. Mr. Daffis?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Mr. Lembrick?
Here.
Mr. McGehee?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, Common Notice of Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7 provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public in any meeting. And whereas desire the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provision in this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to observations of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second. Ms. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes. I will now entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the February 5th meeting.
So moved.
Second. Ms. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes. Mr. Rowe?
Couple of items. This month, Ms. Davenport and I met with the principal at Columbia High School to talk about the bathrooms and smoking and vaping at the high school. It was a good meeting. She indicated that they have more frequent checks of the bathrooms by the security staff and the custodial staff. So we're going to, and they did welcome spot checks, so we're going to continue with that. We also met with the head of the special services and nursing program at the schools, and following that meeting, Ms. Davenport went to the Board of Education meeting and advocated that the nurses, endorsed that the nurses are getting Narcan training, and that we also do with this culture of wellness initiative, which we're hoping to work with the schools on as they're reconfiguring the school district schools. So more to come on that.
Mr. Rowe, I'll ask you a question about the bathrooms. Did they communicate to you the logistics, now the process of when a complaint is issued in a high school?
No, and we did talk about that, but the principal didn't have any specific, person that would be the contact.
It was my understanding that the process was that a student can raise a complaint, go to the central office, that's flagged at the central office and reported to TIMCO, and then they go and address the issue between periods. That's what was communicated to me.
Okay, I think that's a good plan. So we'll do work.
Maybe just follow up and just make sure that they told me one thing, I'll make sure they're telling you the same thing.
Right, and all the custodians and security guards have radios that they can talk to each other. So if one of them does observe damage, they can easily radio to the office or the other custodial or security people.
I mean, there's vandalism, there's, there's actual just lack of inventory too. There's two different things. So I think there is vandalism, but I also think there's some times when, supplies run out, they just need to be cognizant of that.
Right. I think, this doesn't sound overly complicated. If a toilet room's not in good shape, you tell the school office people or one of the custodians or the security guards, and they should be able to pass on that message.
Agreed.
Humane Society, we're back on their schedule for spay neuter and animal wellness. If you recall, it was a really popular program, and they came back this month. They'll be back twice in April to do spay neuter and animal wellness, rabies shots, distemper, and other dog and cat wellness care. And it looks like it's going to be really popular again based on the numbers of people who came to the first program. This next item is a little strange, but the New Jersey Cancer Institute has a giant blow-up colon. And
like inflatable?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And we're going to put on March 27th from 10 to 1, we're going to put it in Rickleton Square.
Okay.
And it's actually something people
Happy
can
birthday
walk
to me.
through. So it's, but it's, it's to educate you about colon cancer. And far too few people see their doctor or get colonoscopies when they're 50 years or more of age. So, and it's a woman's health issue, it's a men's health issue. Catching colon cancer early will save your life. And if you catch it too late, you die. Simple as that. And the only way you know for sure is to have a colonoscopy. So it's funny and we all feel squeamish about it, and it's no fun drinking that stuff, but it saves your life.
So in addition to having this blown up colon, what other type of, will there be screening? I mean, not screening, but will there be people there? What's going to happen?
We're going to be giving out the Hemocolt kits to test your stool to see if it has blood in it, and there'll be other educational materials given out. But this is the newer version that you can do at home. So unlike the older version where you had to bring it back and put some liquid drops on it to see if it turned to show blood or not. If you don't have the colonoscopy, the second best is to have the Hemocolt stool, blood in your stool test. Because if you have colon cancer, polyps, there may be blood showing up in your stool, and this is an early detection before you even see it.
And you'll be working with our township administrator to get this information out.
Pardon?
You'll be working with our township administrators to email out about this?
Yes, we're advertising widely. Yes.
I mean, we do the Oyster Fest, and that's about skin cancer. We take that very seriously, so we should take all cancer seriously.
Yes. That's my report. We are having an Essex County Health Officer meeting. It's required by the state, and we're going to be setting priorities for public health issues. And it's county-wide, so there's plenty of priorities. It's also useful because different towns have different pressing health needs. So for example, East Orange may need a special grant for maternal and child health, and Newark may need a special grant for lead. So by having these meetings, we set them up in a position where they can write grants. It's a kind of a bureaucratic administrative thing, but that's what we need to do, and we're going to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Now entertain any comments from the public. If anyone would like to address the Board of Health, please approach. Okay, seeing no one, I will now entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, folks. We're back on the regular agenda, item number 8. This is an ordinance on final passage.
Mr. Mayor, item number 8, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 2945-19. It's an ordinance to prohibit parking in designated spaces. This ordinance will prohibit the parking of motor vehicles in designated electric vehicle charging parking spaces, except when an electric vehicle is in the process of charging.
So this ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this ordinance dealing with the parking spaces for the electric charging station? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. And Ms. Adams, can we get a motion?
Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, so that was the test run for the next ordinance. And the next ordinance is the plastic and paper bag ordinance. So we'll do the same thing. The clerk will read the title. I'll say that it was properly advertised. I'll ask if there's anyone who would like to speak on it, and anyone here who would like to talk to us about the plastic bag, paper bag ordinance. You would come up to the microphone and give us your name and your address. And we will entertain everyone who wants to say something. We just ask that you come up once after we've exhausted everyone and there's no one else. If anyone wants to come up again and because they forgot something, you can do that. But we'll listen to everything that has to be said. At the conclusion of the public hearing, then we will stop that public hearing and the Township Committee will have a conversation and decide how to move forward. So with that, let's go to item number 9.
Mayor, item 9, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 2946-19. It's an ordinance to prohibit the use of plastic bags and regulate the use of paper bags by retail establishments within the Township of Maplewood. The purpose of this ordinance is to reduce the use of disposable paper and plastic non-reusable checkout bags by retail establishments in the Township of Maplewood.
Okay, this ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this ordinance which regulates the use of paper and plastic non-reusable checkout bags? If you'd like to speak on it, please come up and give us your name and address and share anything you'd like with the Township Committee.
Hello, Mary Vias, 26 Washington Park in Maplewood. If there can be a little more clarification on the plastic and the use of the paper that we're going to still be allowed to use, I'm a little confused on where we are with everything.
So this ordinance will ban, the way it is right now, this ordinance will ban plastic bags, all plastic bag checkout bags as of June 1st. And as of August 1st, paper bags will only be allowed with a charge of a nickel, any checkout bag. It involves every store in Maplewood, every kind of store in Maplewood.
Mm-hmm. So the paper will still be allowed to be used, we just have to charge the customer?
Correct.
Retailer keeps the bag charge.
Right. The nickel stays with the retailer.
Okay.
And in the interim, we will be working to distribute reusable bags. Mm-hmm. And also we would encourage store owners to have reusable bags available for their customers.
Okay. Is there going to be, so our business, we in the past have used cardboard boxes, I guess like the case that you would get for like a case of soda for carryout. There isn't going to be an issue with using those, correct?
This is only in bags.
No, cardboard's.
Okay, but I'm saying because I just want to make sure that there isn't going to be an issue with that.
No issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica Marvel. My address is One Burroughs Way in Maplewood. Speaking on behalf of our retail establishment, and I just want to raise some inconsistencies with the ordinance and have you consider them going forward. This is really around the paper bags. After reviewing the ordinance, there are a couple of questions and clarifications that would be worth talking about. So one of them is, what is the difference between a 1-pound craft bag, which is made out of recycled material or any bag size, and a to-go bag, which is also made of recycled material? So why is there, a regulation on one bag and not a different size bag? The next question is kind of related to what was just asked. There are pizza boxes and a to-go bag. So what is the difference, given that they're both made of recycled materials and they're both used for carryout? So why is the ordinance being used just for paper bags and not for other things that are used for carryout? I'd like to just describe a scenario that might happen in a store or a restaurant. If a customer orders and pays for their meal and they're sitting down at the table, but then they want to take home what remains and need a bag to do so, and the customer doesn't have cash to pay the 5 cents for the bag fee, is the establishment supposed to charge the 5 cents credit card transaction and incur a higher credit card processing fee for that? And what's a solution for something like that? In the ordinance, you make accommodations for low-income customers in the proposal. How are we supposed to verify who is low income? Why are retail establishments being required to collect a tax that they don't really want to collect, or at least ours doesn't, and that money that would be collected isn't even going into an environmental cleanup fund? Then we have a number of takeout customers that really just order their meals online, and therefore those customers would not have the option to opt out of the 5 cent fee. So the law seems very uneven, and it could impact different types of consumers differently. Was this considered? And last but not least, I just want to say that the business climate in the village is far from ideal. And we're looking to make things easier for customers. So we're seeing a lot of businesses hurting, a lot of vacancies, a lot of shop turnovers. So we ask that you encourage as much business as possible and not create nuisances and frictions with the customers. They can take their business elsewhere, and they will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Bessie. I live at 172 Parker Avenue in Maplewood, and I'm here. I own a gift store in the village, and so it's a tricky kind of thing to come out and say, I don't want to appear to not be on the side of the environment and recycling, and of course, single-use plastic bags should be eliminated, but there needs to be more consumer education before implementing a change like this in terms of the paper bags and cloth bags, before we just pull it away from them. People need to learn how to shop with these bags. Gift stores like mine are impulse purchase places, or they're coming because they want to have a present that they can go to a party with. Sometimes the only thing that separates me from Amazon is the fact that they can go to that party with a present. And if they wind up just getting it delivered at home because I can't offer anything else that sets me apart, it's going to come in a big cardboard box with styrofoam. So it's a little bit of, there needs to be a lot more education that goes along with it. And a lot of times, I brought some examples of bags just because the bags we've always used in my store are made of recycled material. From the beginning, I've always tried to be really environmentally friendly. A lot of these craft bags are already made of recycled material. Our branding this is a big part of it. In the past, and I know a lot of these other stores have given away tons of these tote bags. And then I stopped because the ones that you can afford, and this one's sort of nice, but it's still not going to hold a lot, and it's very thin. I found out that these have to be used 327 times to offset the carbon footprint And people are making these and giving them away, and they're causing just as big an environmental problem. And I don't get a ton of these back. I don't see them around all the time. And I've given away thousands. I mean, I've been here for 13 years. I've given away at Christmas and Mother's Day, we give them away all the time. I know the Village Alliance has given them away. The ones you can afford are not the thick, sturdy ones that are going to be used. So unless you educate people, people are going to start making these thin ones that are just the same environmental problem. And then you have these, which I hate, which are the non-woven bags, right? So this is the affordable alternative, but these are made of plastic. And these are not good for the environment at all. So it seems to me that we need to figure out a solution. Is it maybe making things more easy to recycle in town? Is there a way that this doesn't just happen in June and all of a sudden, you know, it's pulled out from underneath people? I don't know. It worries me, quite frankly, and it seems to be applied in a way that isn't consistent across all businesses also. You know, if you're a dry cleaning company, you can still use all those plastic bags, but I can't wrap a gift and put it in my environmentally friendly bag. It seems unfair. You can get Chinese food in a clamshell, you know, but I can't use this. It seems unfair. If you are going to encourage people to make alternatives, these little muslin and cotton bags we always give away with jewelry and things like that, people can use them over and over and forever. Go to the stores, teach people about that, and let them know. But there's a price. These are a lot more expensive. And then I would ask that you would put aside money to help advertise this, to send out information, have people out in the village discussing it and letting them know. Maybe everyone pooling their resources together and having giveaways of things like this. This is like the kind they use farmers markets and things like that. I just think it's a lot to ask people to stop, not in grocery stores. You get it in your head, and we're getting there, and we've been educated, but to just, in places where you're making impulse purchases, to then have to walk around the village with your stuff, I don't know. I think it's going to affect us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Nathanson, 33 Durand Road. At the level of sentiment, I'm very supportive of what you guys are trying to do here. I recycle everything. I recycle my plastics. I recycle the plastic bags, you know. I take them over to Stop and Shop in South Orange or to ShopRite in Milburn. You know, I collect them and I recycle them. I might add, there's no place in Maplewood Village to recycle plastic bags. So maybe that's something to think about. My knowledge of the problem is pretty anecdotal. You know, I see stuff on TV, see plastic bags and, you know, littering around. So sentimentally, I'm pretty supportive. But I don't think sentiment is really adequate basis for legislation. So I'm sure you guys have researched this, and all the whereas clauses in the ordinance lay out a whole litany of problems that relate to single-use plastic bags. But my question is, what percentage of the single-use plastic bags are for carryout? There's all kinds of single-use plastic bags. You got the produce bags that you put your broccoli and bananas in the store. You got garbage bags. You got food storage bags. You got all kinds of single-use plastic that's used in packaging. You got dog poop bags. So there's all kinds of single-use bags, and this carryout thing is just a tiny little sliver of the problem. And then there's all the other kinds of single-use plastic.
water bottles, the the plastic containers that you put arugula in or romaine or whatever. So I guess my question is, to what extent have you actually researched this problem? You know, the whereases are sweeping generalities, and I can basically, at a level of sentiment, say, yeah, I guess so. But to what extent have you guys actually researched the problem? To what extent have you actually tried to size the amount of harm that's done to the residents of Maplewood? You know, at some level, I tend to think this is not really a meaningful attempt to solve what's really a state or national problem. It's more a matter of a statement of sentiment or editorializing or grandstanding on the part of the Township Committee, because it doesn't really do anything to solve the problem. So that's my general sense about it. I have some specific questions. Number one, can businesses sell single-use carry-out bags? They sell all other kinds of single-use bags. Can they sell those if they wanted to? You can get them on Amazon for about $30 for 1,000, so they're dirt cheap. But if a business wanted to sell them, could they do it? The ordinance doesn't address that. When it comes to the paper bags,
Well, actually, it does.
not really.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between whether it does and whether it really does.
Says you
But
can't provide it.
it says excluded from the definition of single-use plastic carry-out bags are bags sold in packages containing multiple bags intended for use as food storage bags, garbage bag, yard waste bags, or pet waste bags.
So they could sell, if they wanted to, they could sell these carry-out bags in bulk, package of 10 or 20 or whatever.
If it's for food storage, garbage, yard waste,
Well,
or
you
pet
know,
waste, then yes. I'm just reading from the ordinance that you said didn't address this.
So they could sell them, I think.
Do you want me to interpret the ordinance? It's written here.
I'm asking a question.
And I answered your question.
Okay, let's move on. What's your next?
Okay.
What's next?
When it comes to the paper bags, two things. A friend of mine who works with seniors told me that he felt that paper bags are far more difficult for seniors to handle, because they generally don't have handles. Sometimes they do, and if they have handles, you put any weight in and they tend to rip. But the paper bags you have to carry from underneath, and so it might be more difficult for a senior. Now, you know, they may want to use the reusable ones, that's fine. But I'm just pointing that out. The other question I had about the paper bags is, because the 5-cent fee is retained by the business, okay, is this really an example of the township trying to set the price? Is it a price setting thing? The township doesn't get any money out of it. The township doesn't collect it. It's not really a fee. It's really, you're setting the price that the business has to charge. And it's a legal matter. I just don't know whether that's appropriate. So those are my thoughts about it. I think the sentiment, the motivation is solid. I think the execution of it is, in my mind, debatable.
Mr. Nathanson.
Yes.
If you will. Do you have any recommendations?
Well,
other than charging that this body is putting forth legislation that has not been researched, that is based only on emotion and sentiment. Do you have any recommendations,
Let me ask
sir?
the question. Let me just ask you.
Yes,
would you
you
be willing-
Sir, I asked you a question.
Answer his question first.
No, if I implied that,
Sir, you said that explicitly. You didn't imply it, but I want to get beyond that. I'm not here to judge you, as
That's
I
fine.
wish you not to judge us. I'm asking you a question. You came to the podium and you asked certain questions and you picked through the ordinance, as others have done. Merchants have come forth and they've said, we recommend this. our concern is that. Do you, sir,
Yes.
have
I
any
do.
recommendations?
I do have a recommendation.
What are those, sir?
I have two recommendations. Number one is that all the research that you did to support this should be made public. That's number one. Number two, I actually think this is much more effective if it's done at a state level.
Okay.
I mean, to the extent that you can lobby, to the extent that you can get together with other townships, I think that's far more productive than a single locality trying to do this on its own.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor.
Pull the microphone down.
I'm sorry?
Pull the microphone down. There you go.
I'm not that tall. All right, my name is Marcos Rodriguez. Address is 719 Irvington Avenue. And one of the administrative staff members of Extra Supermarket. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. As you know, we've been around 25 years in the city of Maplewood. And I have some concerns as to this ordinance. If I may be jumping around a bit, just bear with me. I have some notes here. So I'm respectfully asking for you guys to reconsider this ordinance, and there's some points that I would like to address relevant to this ordinance. First of all, I want to make it very clear we are not against the ordinance. I for one, am eco-friendly individual, and the supermarket and the staff and the ownership is also in accordance with the actions that you guys are taking. But there are some things that we have some concerns. First, what I realized is that there weren't necessarily alternatives considered apart from a paper bag or a reusable bag. I learned a lot in the last few hours when I've been addressing some of these things. I did some research, and we discovered that there is 100% compostable and biodegradable bags that are just as efficient as plastic bags. Of course, they're a bit more costly, but that is in no way affect the consumer or the city. That is an added expense for us. I would like for you guys to consider that option, and of course, cost-free in the sense that there's no 5-cent charge added to an alternative apart from a paper bag. We have looked up different vendors. They may afford those type of bags. And when I say compostable and biodegradable, they all claim, although I'm skeptical and I would like to try it, they're at some point or another edible. You can eat them and it has no harm. That's how co-friendly it is, eco-friendly it is. Second, I have a concern regarding there's an exemption clause on this ordinance. As you know, there is our clientele, for the most part, is low-income households, and for the most part, a good portion are under public assistance, understand? And it creates a certain environment for my staff and myself to ask or in some way, I don't even know how to approach it, ma'am or sir, are you under public assistance in order for them to qualify for that 5-cent exemption, which is not 5 cents, and maybe, $1 or $2, but it goes a long way for people who, I say this term loosely with no disrespect, penny pinchers, a lot of times our customers come with a fixed budget, fixed income, and they don't have the luxuries that most of our citizens, for the most part, that are well off, can do. So I'm respectfully asking that somehow, one way or another, it all boils down to the 5-cent cost.
How do you determine currently whether someone is using EBT or another assistance program?
That's a very good question. EBT, when you go to a facility or patronize a business, they ask you cash or credit, okay? And for the most part, the public assistance, people who are under public assistance, get a EBT card. That EBT card works in the same form as a credit card. Understand? At no time do they expose themselves as to being under public assistance. They just swipe the card like a normal transaction, put in their PIN number, and, voila, done, they're out of the way, no problem whatsoever.
Right, at that point, couldn't your cashier just take off whatever charges for once, because does your cashier see that?
No.
The cashier doesn't
Well,
see.
unless it's a WIC transaction, then they have to present the coupon. And of course, at that moment, all the, the groceries that are attached to that, we process under the WIC platform. That is the only non-transparent transaction.
Okay, so just to clarify, if someone comes in and they're using a card with the EBT program, the cashier doesn't know that credit card is an EBT card. They just know that it's a credit card that was accepted.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
Right. Now,
I just want to follow up on that. So if I use a credit card, if I use a MasterCard, does it say MasterCard on the receipt?
They'll ask you, is it cash or credit?
Yeah.
If it's Visa,
Right.
I guess because of coding or whatever the case is, it'll be MasterCard. They'll say what it is and they'll push a button. What we're trying to avoid is having a person.
No, I understand that. I think we understand that. And I've shared the letter that we received from your supermarket with everyone. So we've read this and heard this, and so we're trying to drill down a little bit because I think it's a valid point. I just want to understand. So the cashier says cash or credit. So I pull out a credit card. I pull out a Visa. I put my Visa. I either swipe it or put it into the chip reader. Does the receipt say Visa on it or credit card on it? Does the receipt say anything?
Yes, but it's post now. Once you pass it and the receipt comes out, it's too late now to charge.
I understand.
Understand? So now I have to revisit that transaction, and I have to.
No, I understand that part, but I just want to understand if the receipt says,
yes.
So is it the same if I use my MasterCard, it would say MasterCard?
It depends on your, on the processing company.
Okay.
But for the most part, that I could remember, and that's a good
You
question.
haven't worked in register in a while.
No,
All
18 years, and I've never looked at a receipt.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I would think it would say Visa, and I would usually have the last four numbers on there. So you would know. You would get an idea.
You answered my question, which
Yes.
is I was thinking that, if it doesn't have to be clear, obviously, our intention is not to make it so that someone has to announce it to the public, but if the cashier somehow knew from their screen without having to speak to the person that this is an EBT card, then they could just go ahead and remove whatever bag charges.
The problem is that the card is paid after the bags are filled.
Right.
So
I have to go
you
back.
put the cards in, the bag is filled, put in the cart. So you have to go back and count the bags and then charge somebody. And it's probably not an approved upon.
Well, it's not an efficient transaction, number
And
one.
it's also, it's also probably not an approved EBT cost, so that would have to come out of the person's pocket.
That's correct. Right.
But they wouldn't have to pay
Well,
the
no,
bag fee.
that's right. But you have to say that they are.
It would just be a matter of taking it off, but it sounds like that may not be
And some
practical.
people, in all fairness, some people don't have a problem with that. But there are people that do not want, they just don't want, it's a privacy.
We understand the concern,
Well, before you continue.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a loyalty rewards program at your supermarket?
No, we do not.
You do not. So you don't have any other type of swiping mechanism to account for that consumer?
The supermarket itself, and I've been dealing with the health department and licensing. We have new administration now. After 20-something years, we have new administration now. They've been above and beyond. They've pretty much invested a lot of resources, new refrigeration, and a lot of things to make the business much better than it was before. And I think you guys, some of the staffing here in the city has visited and made those comments. And it doesn't stop now. We're still making efforts to make the business a much more better. But these are some concerns, and again, with all due respect, that I have relevant to the ordinance. Now, there is another issue that I have, and it's on a business level, okay? Now, our customers will be asked to pay 5 cents, okay? I learned not too long ago that in an effort to avoid that, we were going to absorb the cost, but I learned this ordinance does not allow me to absorb. They must pay the 5 cent cost, understand? And that's an issue for me because what happens is my customers, at one way or another, who are very much on fixed income may consider not patronizing our business, and it will impact our business on a level that it's noticeable. Understand? Now, my other concern on a business end is one of my primary competitors. It's 5-minute walking distance right on city line. Okay, and they're not subject to the same regulation that we are. Understand? They're very much, they have the same affordable food options that we have for the most part. And our customers who don't mind walking 5 minutes extra will patronize them. And more than likely, I have a strong feeling belief, because although a lot of our customers are not aware of this ordinance, the ones that are certainly against it. I explained to them the whole eco-friendly movement and the purpose of it, and I'm all for it. But I think the ordinance, with all due respect, and I can serve as some resource, because I did do some research. It's to our best interest. And I think the common denominator here at the end of the day is an eco-friendly environment, okay? Probably one of the best options that I can deliver, among a few others that I'll gladly share with you guys in a later time, because I want to tie up this mic. But the 100% reusable bag does not in any way create a disturbance for the customer, for the business. We're already paying, we have an overhead cost on baggage. You understand?
I have a question about that bag,
Yes.
if you don't mind.
Yes.
Is that bag made, what materials are used to make that bag? If it's not made predominantly of plastic, then the ordinance doesn't prohibit it.
Okay, then that would solve a big problem. The bag is made, it's an organic compound. I researched one, for example, is made out of cassava, which is a root vegetable. But there's other elements. But for the most part, they're organically compound.
Right, because the term single-use plastic carryout bag is defined in the ordinance as any bag made predominantly of plastic that is not made or intended for reuse. So if the bag is not made predominantly of plastic, the ordinance doesn't apply and you can use it.
Okay, but do we still have to charge the 5 cents? That is the question. That's where the ordinance is not.
I think we have to look at the ordinance and make it clearer on both counts.
Because it's not a paper bag either. It's not
No,
a paper
it's not.
paper. So this is sort of a.
But it's not,
And it's a
it's not,
small.
it's still a single-use
It is a
bag.
single-use
Right,
bag,
it is.
right? It's not a single-use bag.
But it's bio, 100%. Hey, listen, I drive, when I drive to work, it saddens me that I may see an extra bag 2 or 3 blocks down. For some reason, it always blows to Irvington. All right? But
It's the way the wind blows.
But in all fairness, it is a responsibility for everyone, the business, the patrons, the city as well. You guys are playing a major role in changing that, and we're willing to, and we will accommodate it. We just want a even level playing field on a business end. On a customer end, what I can't, it's very rough for me to accept that I will lose a good amount of customers.
Mr. Mark, a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
One, when you were doing your research, how many of your consumers do already use reusable bags?
0.
0%?
Yeah.
Okay. And have you previously tried to educate your consumers on environmental initiatives?
We have not, but this is why it's gonna be my next thing, and I understand the city ordinance, but we're more, I think, state implementation will broaden that play field in the sense that our customer, whether they go to Maplewood, East Orange, Newark, Camden, Cherry Hill, they all are going to be facing the same issue. Understand?
That is correct.
Not only the customer, but the business as well.
Right, and to that point, the reason why our ordinance went ahead is because at the state level, they want to charge a dime.
Yeah.
You do understand that? So when that passes, it actually increases, it doubles.
I will be there at the state.
You'll be down in Trenton. Good for you. And we're happy you're here tonight. But going back to education, right? So you haven't had the opportunity to educate your patrons or your consumers regarding environmental action, okay? And you'd be willing to work with our township committee to do that, right?
Absolutely. I'm a fan of education. Ignorance plays no role. So at the end of the day, I work with the city in any way possible to enhance this ordinance to best serve not only the community, but our business and more importantly, our customers.
We have a question here from Ms. Adams.
Yes, sir.
Do you sell reusable bags?
No, we do not, but we will. We will. Of course, that's a no-brainer. So if we're going to promote this type of movement, that should be an option accessible to our customers. I even thought about a sponsorship program. Local businesses in the city of Maplewood somehow, one way or another, come together and have maybe some sponsorship on the side of bags, Extra Supermarket, Wawa, and hand them out. Maybe for the citizens alone, maybe hand them a good every 3 months, give them 5 bags.
Yeah, I think education and some of the give bags, I see our green team chair waiting to speak. I think she's going to address some of those because we've talked about a lot of those initiatives as well.
Right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tracy Woods. I live at 253 Burnett Avenue, and I'm also the chair of the Maplewood Green Team. I'm going to stand on the side so I can talk to everybody. I just wanted to let you guys know that the Green Team has volunteered. We are a volunteer group of appointees and residents that work on environmental issues. And in the last a while back, we won a prize, and we were saving the money from that prize to, we didn't know what. We were saving it for a good reason. And when this legislation, when this ordinance came up, we said, this seems like if this passes, that we will use that prize money to do an education campaign to really help ease this transition for everyone in town. And we understood that this change is going to be a big change, and it's going to be difficult for everybody involved to, both for the residents and for the people that own stores. We did a lot of research about the environmental components of this, and we felt that even though it would be difficult, and we'd have to work very hard to smooth as much as we could the transition, that it was worth pressing and standing in support of. And I wanted to let you know that should the ordinance pass, we are going to be reaching out to all the businesses in town. We have some signage that we're working on with the townships to create to explain the ordinance. If you have a custom situation in your retail establishment, we will make custom signage. For example, a grocery store where there's multiple checkouts, you might want smaller signs at each checkout instead of one larger sign. So we're willing to work with stores to make custom solutions for what they need. We also did a bunch of research on how the behavior change of bringing your own bag works. And one of the things that we learned works really well is the raffles where if you bring a bag, you get to enter a weekly raffle, and then you get a gift certificate for that store. So we have some funding to do. We were thinking we'd do several weeks at both of the grocery stores, and then also have a raffle that moved around at the different retail establishments. So there's lots of things to talk about, and we are definitely on the side of easing the transition, and we have both volunteers and some budget to help support that. Another thing that I think the retailers will like to hear is, I know that if you're thinking about ordering your own reusable bags, it can be difficult if you don't have a design help to get the monochrome vector logo that you need to order the bags. The Green Team has design support for that. We can take your current logo and prepare it into art ready to be printed on the bags so that you don't have to incur the costs of hiring a designer to do that. And we're also very open to hearing about what kind of education campaign things that you think will work. This is an open process, and we very much want to help ease the transition for everyone in town and be part of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Nielsen. I live at 434 Ridgewood Road. And as you all know, I'm also the chair of the Soma Action Climate Committee. I will also stand somewhat to the side so that I can also talk to the concerned retailers, for whom I have a lot of sympathy. And as I've said before, SOMA Action has a lot of volunteers, and we really are ready to support the town with the education campaign to make sure customers understand the new ordinance and are ready to comply with it. We have also some funds for reusable bags. We've also talked with Assemblyman McKeon. I've been working with the SOMA Justice Group to try to understand where the most vulnerable consumers are and how we can help target those consumers so that the transition is eased for them. I want to express my great appreciation for the efforts of so many of our retailers to be green, and I love the 100% recycled bags, and I know that the transition to 100% green living is enormous, and I think this is a really important first step that we have to take, even if it's only a small step. It makes a big difference. It reduces the cost of the disposal of all of these bags that even if we try to recycle so many of them, just a very small proportion overall are truly recycled. They end up in our waterways. They end up in trucks that are polluting the air and the waste that is not recycled is incinerated in Covanta in Newark, and imposes further health costs on our neighbors because of our overuse of resources. So I would like to say too, I would reach out to any of the retailers who want to talk to me about how we can help them make the transition, or go to the SOMA Action website and find the Climate Committee, and you'll find my contact. Thank you very much, and thank you for your leadership on this.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Good evening. My name is Albert Mendez, and I am one of the owners of Extra Supermarket at 719 Irvington Avenue. With all due respect to the council, the first I, as an owner, have heard about this new ordinance was a week ago, last Tuesday, when we received the notice. We have taken ownership of Extra Supermarket July 16th of 2018. Since then, we have done a substantial amount of work in the store to reduce our carbon footprint. We have more efficient freezers, more efficient dairy cases, more efficient produce cases. 50% of our meat cases have been changed, and we're using computer systems to regulate the compressors. That store used to have compressors all over the place, and they all used to run at the same time. And now they are computer controlled and very efficient. I believe that we've had very little time to prepare for this. We are willing to put recyclable bins in the store, possibly do a reverse vending machine where we would pay for single-use plastic bags to the customer. We have a very unique customer. They don't eat out, they cook at home, and they shop a lot, okay? And the reason they shop a lot and they eat at home is because they're lower income. That being said, charging a nickel for a paper bag is going to make a difference to our business and to our employees. There might be 40 people here that are employees of Extra today, because it's an important thing to us, including our union president. I would respectfully ask the town to postpone this, to give us some time to be able to be proactive. We're willing to give bags away. The only thing I really can't do is charge the customer, okay? Because it is a low-income customer, and it is an issue. They'll go somewhere else, and it's a problem for us. The other thing about asking whether somebody is on public assistance for an exemption, I believe it's discriminatory, and I wouldn't want to do it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor DeLuca, Council. My name is Charles Hall Jr. I live at 370 Highland Avenue in Newark. I also, our Union Hall is on 1576 Springfield Avenue in Maplewood. My first job as the Vice President of my union was to find a place for us to locate. After much research, I ended up in Maplewood. Proud to be here. Love your mayor, love the town, everything about it. And I could appreciate, and let me back up and say that I'm pro-environment, as you would expect, I hope. Eco-friendly, I recycle, I do all of that as much as my conscience allows me to do it. I'm sure I'm not perfect. I'm here on behalf of 60 of my members that work in extra. I'll first say to you that this employer is a good employer. And this, me being here, is labor management at its best. In a store like that, for an employer to give medical, holidays, vacation, raises is extraordinary. You might say, oh, they got a good business. Well, their competition is major supermarkets. They're not a major supermarket. And if you don't know anything about the supermarket business, I'm sure many of you do because you're consumers, supermarkets are being squeezed to no end by big box stores. So why am I here? Anything that affects their bottom line affects my members, affects workers, everyday people who are just trying to make a living. The owner came to me, he says, well, this is short notice. I need some time to adjust to this. He told me, Charles, I'm eco-friendly, I'm environmentally friendly, I'm willing to do anything. I want to be on the level playing ground, though. This ordinance doesn't allow me to do that. Why? Why not? I mean, who's going to leave your store? Well, shoppers and consumers are, I don't want to, do stuff by habit. You go to the same store by habit, this is the way it is. Well, now it's not that way anymore. You got to pay some nickels, that equals dollars. And by the way, you know, there's an exclusion for people on public assistance. But guess what? In this state, there's something called the working poor who goes to the store with $40 and that's all they have. So when you take $2 out of that 40, it becomes an equation to them. So thank God for the minimum wage increase coming. It's still not enough, but there is something in the state called the working poor. What else can I say to you? Their customer base. They have competition in Irvington, they have competition in Newark, and they have competition in East Orange. All right, they compete against each other. So where am I going to save a couple of dollars? What's going to be the most convenient for me to walk out with my groceries becomes the question. And you know, I don't know how many. If 10 leaves, that's too many. If 10 of his customers leave. If 100 leaves, is devastating to him. So he's asking for more time. I went out, the guy did a lot of research. He came up with a biodegradable bag. I thought I seen it somewhere in the room because I wanted to give it to you guys. Not a bad bag. And it has some benefits to it. So I hope it's in the room somewhere we could leave you with it so you could feel and touch it and know what it's all about. But happened to find one in my house. And then I went to the store and recouped some more for you guys. I ask that you do some more research. I ask that you look at alternatives. I ask that you hear this employer out. This is serious to him. He made an investment in this community. He made an investment in my members. And, and he's made improvements to the store. And, you've heard them. They're all knowledgeable. They all, too, care about the environment. They're just asking for you to look at a couple of different things. And myself, I'm concerned about what's going on, how it'll affect my members in the long run. So I thank you for your time. And by the way, I was in Leonia last night speaking for members, and wasn't half as nice. I was there all night, only for the case to be postponed in defense of one of our members. It was no air conditioning there, but it was eminent domain that we're talking about. So I was there for 4 hours till 11 o'clock at night. Thank you for speeding this up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So you
Mr. Hall.
mentioned, Mr. Hall, you mentioned a couple of things. One, you said a couple of dollars, taking out of a consumer's pocket, correct?
Yes.
That would be 40 bags, 40 plastic bags at 5 cents a pop, okay? So therefore, Mr. Mendez, you articulated that you have a high cadence of people coming per week, right? They shop a lot, eat at home, so forth. Over multiple weeks. Oh, so they come in 20, 30. Mm-hmm. Well, I understand that, but I'm looking at the data, and he's saying $2 is 40 bags, 40 plastic bags. Now, I've used plastic bags myself at a competitor, and 40 bags, I mean, that's a lot of bags, right? It's a lot of bags. And if you're buying them, you're getting waters and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to get logistically into some of the nitty-gritty. One thing you talked about, you purchased the store in 2018, correct? And I asked your manager if you've done a loyalty program yet. You said no. You haven't done a rewards program yet, but you are. Oh, yeah, sure. Come on up. Sorry. And I'm willing to, I want to work with you, but I'm finding opportunities for us to work together. Sure. You just mentioned you don't have a loyalty program yet, so I know about loyalty programs. So there's an opportunity there where you can have a database on the back end, and the customer swipes. There's also could be a point system, so therefore that consumer can get a couple points off a certain produce where you have a decent margin. But also in that database, you can flag a consumer for different types of transactions. So what I'm trying to understand is just, because I want to help you understand the logistics of the transactions, on a cadence of a week or a month or so forth, coupled with the data provide Mr. Hall.
There's people that come in once a month, okay? And they'll buy 2 shopping carts loads of stuff. A customer like that will take 30 bags. What I'm willing to do is to, with time, incentivize our customers by giving out reusable bags, okay? Maybe having a system where we do a reverse vending, where we'll give people credit for bringing plastic bags, whether it's from someone else, it doesn't really matter. The idea is not to charge the customer, okay, and penalize our customer because we're in the small township of Maplewood. And 2 blocks away, there's a competitor that's in Newark, and 6 blocks the other way, they're in Irvington. We'll lose the customer. I really feel that way. I feel that we will.
Can I ask you, when do you think this ordinance is going to take into place again?
Pardon?
When do you think this ordinance goes into act with the 5-cent fee? When is that going to happen?
The state?
No, when does our fee go into effect?
I think it goes into effect in June or August.
August. It's about 150 days away.
Right.
So you're saying that you can't get a system and logistics working with us in the next 150 days?
The problem is that once I start charging a client 5 cents per bag, I think we'll lose them.
In August.
I think, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Are you done?
almost done. Okay. All right. So, but would you be willing to work with our green team and our environmental team? Okay.
Definitely.
So we have 4 months or over 4.5 months to work on these logistics.
We need to work on it. I just have a problem with the way the ordinance is written regarding charging the client for the paper bag.
Well, I'm not going to argue that. If you were here at the 5 other meetings, you would hear my voice beforehand, but I just want to work with you at this point. So thank you. I think you have a question here.
Yeah, I just want to, in your opinion.
Yes.
You know your customer, right? How long, let's say we were to put this off or to build more lead-in time in the ordinance, right? Because the ordinance does have a couple of months. It has a couple of months before the plastic bag ban goes into effect, and then a couple of months before the paper bag fee goes into effect.
Right.
Right? How much time do you think, in your opinion, is more time to help your consumers see the change and understand the change?
The problem I have is they won't see the change in competitors which are 2 blocks away. Once I charge the 5 cents, even if it's 6 months from now, okay, and our neighbor down the street doesn't charge the 5 cents, I think the customer will go.
Right. So then, is it fair to say that, in your opinion, knowing your customer, and I don't take what you're saying lightly, is a very serious thing that you're saying, and I completely empathize. I'm the son of a small business merchant. I grew up in a small business with lots of competitors around us, so I understand what you're saying. But is it fair to say that what you are saying is that there wouldn't be any amount of time that would be good time, because once you're charging for a fee for a paper bag, whatever it is, 5 cents, 2 cents, 10 cents, it's something that you're not comfortable doing with your customer?
I believe that there are other ways to incentivize the customer by possibly giving away a dollar reusable bag and giving it to him.
Sure.
Versus charging him the 5 cents. If it was on an even playing field where competitors were charging the 5 cents, by all means, let's do it tomorrow. Because there's nowhere to go.
Right.
Okay? But the issue is that as a small municipality, I am going to be the only one, in comparison to all our competitors of low-income customers, that charge the 5 cents.
Understood.
Now, if there's a state ban, let's go for it. Okay? I'm all for that. I just have an issue with charging the customer. I think that's a no-brainer.
I understand
They're
that.
gonna walk.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
thank you. So let's see if there's other people that want to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, let's see if there's other people who haven't spoken yet, and then.
Hi, my name is Pepe Perona. I'm the assistant manager at Extra Supermarket. I've been working in the supermarket industry for a very long time. And I can say it for sure, for my own experience, the customers, our customers especially, they have their own way to do their shopping in the supermarket, especially the supermarket that I work. So the main, we have covered so many topics now, but the main point here is the problem. The Extra Supermarket is located just in the border of the three towns. On the left side, we have Irvington. On the right side, we have Maplewood, and just behind the building, we have Newark. So it's very complex, the situation that we are, because people from Maplewood might be aware of this ordinance and this regulation, which is good. But what about the people from Irvington and people from Newark? They might not be aware of this program, and when they just go to the supermarket, they think that it's a normal way to do the shopping. I'm going to carry my bags to my house and use the plastic bags to, walking with the dog and use the bag, maybe. But what about if we stand at the door and holding and say, no, that's not the way you are going to do your shopping anymore. It's a different way. What happens is we're really afraid that we're going to start losing customers, because right over here on my right side, we have a city supermarket, which is bigger than my supermarket. And to my left side, a couple of blocks ahead, we have Superfresh supermarket, which is located in Newark, on Irvington. And they don't have this ordinance. They don't have this stop on the door. So what's going to happen is that we are going to start losing customers, because the customers, they are not going to feel comfortable shopping in my supermarket anymore. So they are going to, split away to the right, to the left. And this is our really concern. We speak this afternoon together, and this is something that caught my attention. The problem for Extra Supermarket is that we are right in the border. So now, I was trying to recall something that happened with this problem being the business and the border. In many other situations, I don't recall when, but the town, the city, the state make a special situation for business in the border, knowing that not only people from Maplewood, they want to come to my store, but people from Irvington and Newark, they are coming to my store also. So we are just in the border, and that is our main problem. My recommendation is to to make a special, some kind of section with extra supermarkets and work together. We are able to implement different program, recycle program, but right now we don't want to be just like in disadvantage against the other business around us.
Thank you.
That's what I want to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So I want to make sure Charles Hall gets home early. So if there's, he was out till 11 o'clock last night. So I want to, is there anyone else who would like to speak? We've heard a lot. We're starting to get repetition of the same thing. So Chris, I'm sure you want to speak.
My name is Dean Nielsen. I'm a resident of 434 Ridgewood Road in Maplewood. I've also been involved in the research that has come before the formation of the ordinance. And there's some pretty strong research that suggests that communities which move in this direction, where there are fees for paper bags or other non-reusable bags, accommodate and begin to bring their own bags, reusable bags. And there's also something that we are insisting that be built into this program, and that is a research feature of the ordinance itself. In other words, there's going to be very careful monitoring of this. And in fact, if this leads to great loss of customers, then something will be done about it. But the main thing that I think is going to be done about it is that this is supposed to be a precursor to a state program. But we met with Mr. McKeon, and we met with the state representatives for our area, and they're afraid to bring this up this year because it's an election year. And so they're going to back off until after the election in November, and then they may move towards this. But if we have ordinances in several cities around the state, and in fact, we're way behind a lot of cities. We're not going to be the first. We will soon have South Orange with us because we want to have that alliance. But as soon as the election happens and the legislature of the state settles again, then this will be on the agenda. And if we have Maplewood and other progressive cities doing it already, this is a great impetus for the state to make it done statewide.
Great, thank you, Mr. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else? Hold on, before we have repeats, let's make sure.
Good evening. My name is Julio Gonzalez. My address is 8605 Fifth Avenue in New Bergen. I work for Extra Supermarket in Irvington. Okay, we had about a lot of supporting points and non-antagonistic. It's obvious we all want a better environment, but we have to be a little bit concerned about our own biases. So I see that we have a bias here. We have an environmental problem, and the solution is the plastic bags. Okay? I found, hey, I don't know anything about this, but I went to internet and searched about the supporting points. The preambular clauses over here are very clear. There are some that are common sense, and I love them. There are some that are debatable. I went to search about paper grocery bags and plastic bags, and something caught my attention. There's one of the titles, and then I went to search, and there are many similar. Paper grocery bags require more energy than plastic bags. So that means that we live in a footprint somewhere else where the paper is produced. So we translated the problem of the plastic bags over here somewhere in the Midwest, where where the paper bags are made. And probably we have the same opinion of the paper bags and plastic bags. Plastic bags is done probably in a high-tech environment. Meanwhile, the paper bag is easy. We do this, paper bag, and we film a paper bag here. Easy. So it's more environmentally friendly. But how about if we take this with a pinch of salt and we really dig into this and search that in reality we're trying to solve a problem, a perceived problem, that the paper bags are the solution, and in reality we're just confirming our own biases for an agenda that wants to protect the environment, and it's a political issue, hey? And in a time when probably the top officer denies the global warming, yeah, this is courageous to go head to head with that in these little town meetings that we can do something about it. But then I think that I work for the extra supermarkets, and I'm not really confirming what they say, but I just want to go beyond this. Are we really solving any problem here? Are we really, just because we go to use paper bags that arguably are better than the plastic bags, are we really going beyond to solve the real problem here? I think the real solution was pointed out earlier: education. We have to educate our community. And instead of using these paper bags, why don't you get more courageous and say, businesses that's going to put and fund an educational program here in Maplewood? That's better. Okay, the paper bag is not the solution. The education is the solution. So I would go and I don't want to question the research. I don't know the extent of the research over here. It would be interesting to know how it was done. Hey, but my solution, before they ask me for what's your solution, let's educate the town. Let's put some funds. And I bet you that many of the businesses in here, they will applaud and they will support that. Let's educate our town. Let's put some funds. That requires some more courage. That's all I want to say. So, and I'm sorry, this paper bag versus the plastic bag, I don't know. We're more capable than that. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Hall.
Very quickly, at the risk of being redundant, I just want to say, I know this customer. I know that they move easily, and nickels, dimes, quarters, and dollars move them. And it's not just a customer, that's some of my members. So I ask that you take that into consideration and work with this employer.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Just, we got somebody else coming up, and then you can.
I just,
Just say your name again.
Oh, Jessica Marvel. So I do really appreciate what's trying to be done here, and I failed to say that earlier on. I think it's obviously important, and we're all trying to do our best when it comes to recycling. I realized that I didn't have, at the time when I went through my points, I didn't receive any comments back or any feedback. So could I ask some of my questions again and get some comments back from all of you? Or some of the points at least?
Actually, yeah, we try not to get into, taking your time. So you can ask the questions again. Let's see where we go. Yep.
So this is for the paper bags. It's for the paper bags that are at the moment of carry out. So would that apply to smaller size bags that are used in the store that are paper and recyclable bags? Would it apply to smaller bags that are used for baked goods that people just walk out with at the moment that they buy a baked good? I'm just trying to, that's the one question. Is it just for carrying out? So what's the difference between the two?
So you're talking about baked goods?
Yeah, like so does it apply just to a bigger bag that carries out your items? Or if you just go to a bakery and you get one little baked item, would they no longer be able to give you paper as well?
So I think that is an inconsistency that we have in the ordinance. We say that a plastic bag can be used for an unwrapped bakery item, but we don't make it clear that a paper bag can be used for an unwrapped bakery item.
So you're saying that you're going to charge 5 cents for a bag to be carried things that are carrying out the items, but for a baked good, you're not going to charge
Well,
5
that's,
cents.
we have to work, we found since we've introduced it, there's some inconsistency, which we have to go back and take a look at. The issue is, if you go to a store, take a donut. So you go to Wawa, take a donut out of the counter, put it into a plastic bag. You're not charged for the plastic bag you put it into.
Right.
If you go to the counter and pay for it and they put it into a bigger plastic bag, you're charged for that bigger plastic bag. Because that's a carry-out bag. But you're not charged for that initial bag. That's a product bag.
Or a paper bag.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. The paper bag, not the
Right.
plastic bag. Right.
But regardless,
but the issue is, if you were to have a paper bag to put that donut in, the ordinance doesn't speak to that. So we have to take a look at that issue. That seems to be a problem with the ordinance.
Right. Because then it's like you're really singling out one type of bag. And so then some retail establishments are going to be impacted more heavily than others. And that could really
I don't know. I mean, I don't.
And not to mention the whole point of trying to solve this problem to reduce wastage and improve the environment, then only certain bags are affected and not other paper bags, like the smaller ones, let's say.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
Okay, so that's one of them. And so then I had the question around the pizza boxes. So are those pizza boxes?
We're not dealing with pizza boxes.
But that's something that's also something that needs to be recycled. And so
Yeah,
what's
that
the
can be
difference?
recycled.
But that can be recycled, yeah.
And so can the paper bags.
Yes, and so we're not, we can't get into a debate.
No, I guess I'm not getting into
Yeah,
it.
but it
feels that way a little bit.
I'm
It feels
trying to
that way.
understand, really how the ordinance applies to, the main goal is to.
Reduce the use of plastic bags.
Single-use
right?
plastic
Single-use
bags.
That's the
I'm talking
point.
about, and then also regulate the use of paper bags.
Will help to reduce the currency of paper bags in our environment, in our town.
Right. So I would
encourage
just.
use reusable.
Right, so,
Correct.
and that's great, and I think there have been a lot of ideas proposed around education and increasing customers' awareness about all of the different things that they could be doing. But at the same time, if you're going to put a law in place, then it needs to be more consistently applied and thought through. So for example, with the plastic bags, we don't even have plastic bags, but all these businesses like the dry cleaners or the grocery stores or the dog waste bags, there's all this plastic all over the place. So my question is the law going to have the intended impact in our town, or is it actually going to cause more problems for small businesses? That's one of my questions. So, and I don't understand why pizza boxes aren't included.
That's okay, so we just have a difference. We understand that you don't,
Okay.
it's just a difference.
And then I guess I asked about if a patron wants a bag when they're leaving the store and they've already paid, are they going to be charged an additional 5 cents? And if they don't have any
If
cash
it's a
on them?
carry-out bag, yes.
So it costs the business more to run that credit card through the machine than the 5 cents that we'd be charging them. And those fees from the credit card processor, we actually counted, and it costs thousands of dollars to the business.
Right.
And then, again, some other people have asked, how are you going to verify that someone is a low-income customer and they're going to become exempt? I agree that that would be discriminatory. I don't know.
It has to do with food. So you sell food at your business?
We do.
Okay, do you sell food that's eligible with the food program?
No.
Then you don't have a problem.
Then we don't have that problem.
Right.
Okay.
You're good.
And then again with the online. So we have an online business which represents a large proportion of our business. So with those, they're already in a bag to go. So we would have to charge those customers the extra 5 cents no matter what. So then there's like a difference between the online orders versus the people who are coming to the store, and that could differentially impact the business as well. We could get less orders of online orders where you're getting charged the additional 5 cents.
Well, you charge them now. Do you charge a service charge for that at all?
No.
Okay, do you charge sales tax though, right?
Yes.
So it would just be a 5-cent charge in addition. So if I ordered something from you and it would be $20, I'd have to pay 15 cents, say, in sales tax. If it was on one bag, I'd have to pay 5 cents on the bag. So it would be,
Right.
it would just
But
be
those
part
are
of the
people that
cost.
we'd have to charge them for the online orders, we'd have to automatically include that, whereas people coming into the store would not be charged that automatically.
Well, I guess if the person who's doing the online is leaving with a carry-out bag, then they would have to be charged for the carry-out bag.
Basically, you asked, do you want a bag for that? There's a 5-cent fee, or do you want to just take it? The objective
Mm-hmm.
is for people to decline the bag and not to have the automatic thing you do now. You
Right.
go to CVS, you get a gift card, a greeting card, and they stick it in a plastic bag. So
Right.
there's a
Yeah, that-
goal here to
Totally
break this
agree,
constant.
but I totally agree. But in a food environment where we're serving things that can spill, like dressings or soups or food in containers, it's not practical. It's just not practical. So I would just ask you to review the ordinance and reconsider all of the excellent points that have been raised here. And then my other question is, can you describe to me what the recycling program in town is? So when we separate
I can say one
plastics,
thing.
cardboard.
Part of the biggest issue here is 4 years ago, we were paid money for our recycling. So that was income generated for the town. The more people that recycled, the more money we got over the course of several years. And then about 4 years ago, that stopped happening. And so what's happening now, part of it's China, part of it's the end user. There's a million reasons. But we have a line item in our budget for 2019 that's around $150,000 just to do the recycling program, which is state mandated.
Actually, that's incremental. It's $200,000.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
$200,000.
So we're scrambling for ways. Education is fine. It's a piece of the puzzle. We're committed to doing that. But it's been almost impossible to even educate our residents about the recycling.
So that's
And-
residents, but I do just have a question about the downtown and the businesses. When they discard their trash in the dumpsters, is that trash recycled properly?
If it's supposed to.
It's not. It's not. So that would be.
No, that's not the answer. The answer is, you as a business person are supposed to separate your recyclables from your waste. If the recyclables are done properly and they are in a recycling container, you have a contract with someone who's supposed to pick that up and recycle it properly. And that's what we require.
Okay, so that's good. And then what about having more ability in the town itself to recycle the items? To include that as part of the
We
educational?
do. We have on every corner, we have a dual garbage can with both waste and recycling containers in them.
Okay, so I think it was a really good idea that a lot of the volunteer organizations were saying that they could help with the campaign to actually educate consumers about reducing their own waste. But I do find that the onus that's being put on the retail establishments in town, it's such a difficult environment. It is such an expensive town to operate in on so many different levels and to own your small business. I would just really ask you all to put yourself in a small business owner's shoes and the variety of businesses in our town and understand what it takes to survive each day. And then
Thank you.
think about that. Thank you.
What was your business? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that in the beginning.
I didn't, I am an owner of the business, but does it matter?
Yes, it does. It does actually,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, it's Sprout.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to close the hearing and want to thank everybody for their comments. What I would suggest is that for purposes of just clarity, that we move and second the ordinance and have a discussion and see where we land.
Mayor, I move this ordinance be adopted. Oops, sorry. Passages, oh yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Final. I was right the first time. Sorry, I'm losing my mind. I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole. The clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Now we'll have a discussion on whether or not we should move forward with the ordinance. So I want to just kick it off. So I'm not prepared tonight to vote on the ordinance as is.
Say that again, Mayor?
I'm not prepared tonight to vote on the ordinance as is. I think that there are legitimate concerns that have been brought up by particularly the supermarket folks. I think that there are some inconsistencies that I mentioned. You know, I told you I went to the bread stand, got an unwrapped loaf of bread. They put it in here. I paid my money. I walked out of the store. This is a checkout bag. It's also an unwrapped product bag. You make no distinction there. If I used a plastic bag, if I used the plastic bag to like one of those sleeve bags to put it in, I wouldn't be charged. So, and that would be allowed. So I think we need to figure out some distinction there. I think we need to figure out the whole issue of the IDing, the identification. I think what we have in here is that, for example, those over 65 need to show a valid proof of age. I'm over 65, and I would hate to have to show my driver's license every time I went to the supermarket, or went to Walgreens, or went to a gift shop. So I think.
You show it for senior discounts?
I do show it for senior discounts. I don't mind showing it at the movies, but other places, no. So I think we have to figure that out. And I am very sensitive to the whole EBT. One of the reasons why folks in the advocacy movement moved from the old food stamp thing to an EBT card is because it is a more personal transaction.
100%.
It's not the old, here's my stamps and you have to rip them out and all that stuff, or show something. So I'm not sure. Now, having said that, we did research this around the country, and almost all the ordinances that exist have this kind of language. So I think we need to go back and talk to some of the advocates and maybe some of our colleague towns to find out how they are dealing with this. The bottom line here is that, well, first of all, I'm happy that no one got up here and said that there's not a climate problem or there's not an environmental problem. Everybody got up here and said, this is the right way to move to get rid of plastics. And I think that is a credit to all of you, because we don't have a disagreement there. We want to be eco-friendly. We want to respect the environment. And I would say that no matter who you are or what you look like or what your income limit is, I think you care equally about the future for your kids and your grandkids. And this is not about showing off or grandstanding. This is about leadership. And why are we taking this step? Because we tried to take this step a year ago, and we pulled back because we thought the state was going to do it. And you're absolutely right. Having a statewide ban and a statewide system would be the best. But the state is not moving. And I feel as a local leader, as a local government official, as someone who can control the destiny of our own town and make an impact, that I have a responsibility to do something here. So I'm not going to wait for the state to take action. I'm going to take action, hopefully with my colleagues, and move this forward. Now, what we move forward, I think, needs to be a little better than what we have here. I think the issues of identification are important. I think the issues of making sure we don't have inconsistencies between what I mentioned here, between paper and plastic. I think I am willing to listen to some proposal about using the 100% biodegradable bag. Now, we got two of these bags.
One of them's not.
One of them is only 20% post-consumer recycled content. Not worth it. This is the bag we would have to agree. So there would have to be some agreement, if we were to do this, that there would be, and I don't know if that's the right bag, but it has to be a biodegradable bag. There has to be some test. There has to be some agreement between the township and the retailer to use this kind of a bag. And there may be a way to do that. This is the Extra Supermarket is a rather unique situation. It's the largest retail store we have in Maplewood. It's 18,000 square feet. And there may be something we can do with that. We can also take a look at the demographics of the shoppers there to see if there's a way to address it that way. So I think there may be a way to do that. What I heard the folks at the supermarket say is they're willing not to give out plastic. And in my meeting with them Saturday, they told me that they would not double bag any kind of biodegradable bag, but they don't want to charge because charging puts them at a competitive disadvantage. And we don't want to do that. We don't want people to lose their jobs, and we don't want people in our neighborhood or anywhere else not to have a place to shop. So this is a balance. But make no mistake about it, we're going to do something. Because this is about our planet. And so I think we're all on the same page that we want to do something. We just want to do the right something. So I would like to, at the end of my colleagues having a conversation, seeing what we come up with, see if we have an agreement, not move this forward, table this, and work on it some more and bring it up in 2 weeks, and see where we're at, have some more meetings, have some more conversations, and see if we can keep moving this forward. But we are going to be moving this forward.
I agree with Mayor. I need some more specifics. We need to talk about the compostable bags and how we verify they're compostable, and if there's branding or a seal. There seems to be a seal on here, but I don't want to go on too long. I'm in favor of tabling it and tightening it up a little bit. We have a big budget discussion coming up and getting late in the hour, so I would just agree to table this until next meeting.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll go next. I would agree that this is not something that I could vote yes on tonight, based on the concerns that I've heard, and some of which I think we can have some ideas to overcome. Others, I'm not as sure. So I can't say that I'm committed tonight in the way the mayor just did, speaking only for myself, that I will be able to get to yes on something. But I'm hopeful that working with our Environmental Advisory Committee, working with our Green Team, working with the business owners, and working with the folks who've shown up tonight, who've offered some good suggestions, that we can come up with something where I can get to yes. But based on what I've heard tonight, I definitely can't vote yes tonight on the ordinance before us. So, but I think we should keep this discussion going, because the goal here is laudable, and it is something that we have to do something. And in terms of the state waiting for Trenton to do anything, it's always an election year for someone. So waiting for the state to do something, I'm not sure is. That's waiting for the state of New Jersey to do something is a good way of saying we're never going to do it. And I don't think we should be in that position unless we find that we can't do it either. But I'm not convinced that we can do this, but I'm certainly not convinced that we can't. I just can't vote for what we've got before us tonight. So let's keep working on it.
I echo all of those remarks. I think the testimony we received tonight was great. Thank you all for coming out and expressing your concerns. These are very, very real concerns. We want to do something that is thoughtful and impactful, and the best balance of everybody's concerns as possible. On the issue of whether or not we should tackle this at the local level, someone in here earlier said it best. Think globally, act locally. I think it was our youth, right? It's always the youth. Yes. We have to take, as the mayor said, leadership. Our history in our country shows that we never waited for the state or for the federal government to give us our rights. We fought locally, little by little, town by town, state by state. That's how we get things done. So we have to do something locally. We have to send a message to the governor that, hey, local municipalities are doing this, and put the pressure on the state to do something that applies to everyone equally, and therefore not disadvantaging or making any local town uncompetitive or incompetitive. What we have right now is not fully baked. I am concerned about the inconsistency in the bags. I'm very concerned about stigmatizing the privacy issue. I actually am not sure how we get around that if we still move forward with a fee on paper bags. And I also am not prepared to move forward. If I had to vote tonight, I would vote on a ban on the plastic bags, because I think based on everything that everyone has said, I think we can all sort of come to that agreement if we had a couple months to teach people about it on the ground. But the paper bag thing requires further analysis, further conversation, and a hell of a lot more education. Again, we're not sending the message that paper is better than plastic, because then we'll have a paper problem too, which we already have, which is why we're trying to do this way. But I think we really have, in my opinion, much more work to do on the paper side, which goes beyond, in my opinion, 2 weeks for the next TC. And I really am concerned about a local tax that affects us locally and stigmatizes certain of our communities and residents, our consumers. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Tonight, I would sum this up as education. It's been education for all of us. I want to thank everyone who came this evening. I took tons of notes. I want to thank Mary for coming. Wonderful restaurant in the village. Ms. Marble, thank you for coming. I actually do frequent Sprout a lot, actually. And I want to thank Jim for his comments, Michael as well, Mr. Marcos, Mr. Mendez, Tracy, Jennifer, Dean, Mr. Hall, and so forth. For me, it's education, because it was just a couple months ago when I stood here on this dais and said no fee for paper. I said no fee. And I fought for no fee, and my colleagues decided to implement a fee.
So two of us said no fee. I did too.
Yeah. So here we are again.
Accuracy.
Right. Here we are again with the fee, paper versus plastic. I think we all can agree that plastic needs to be eliminated. I think what we have here with the supermarket is an economic issue. You're in a competitive landscape. You're across 3 towns. And I kept trying to give you little hints there about ways you can mitigate this issue with the loyalty rewards program, where it's a way you can track your consumer base through transactionals and not infect them in terms of their transaction. Even you can flag their accounts. And I'm willing to work with you on that. I do that for a living. I do loyalty programs. And it's also a way to mitigate this. And then in that point, you could take your program, your loyalty program, and have it be based on a monetary cost equaling points, and then convert the points into quote-unquote cash, which can be subsidized to 5-cent fee if there is a fee. You could also do it by number of trips, trip frequency. So a number of trips, X amount of points convert to cash. You see that X amount of points, you reduce the fee from those points. Nothing happens, you keep your consumer. And talk more offline. But I also want to thank Ms. Marble for her points. She had 6 points, and I wrote them down, and she came back at an incremental 1 and 6 others. What you did was you used use case studies, which is what we try to do when we put this ordinance together. But you found incremental ones. And that's why there's not a level of comfort here about moving forward tonight. So thank you for your due diligence. I appreciate that. At the end of the day, I go back to the word education. We need to educate everyone in our town, all our merchants, about the value of recycling. We also have an issue, I think, in our special improvement district about recycling currently with our merchants. That seems to be a problem, where even one of our merchant owners doesn't even know about the process of recycling. So I want to work with the Springfield Partnership and Maple Village Alliance to really bring that message home about recycling and see what we can do to help them and help each other collectively. So tonight, we will not be passing this ordinance. We will go back and revisit it. But as the mayor's articulated, we will move forward. We will not wait for the state. We wait for the state, nothing will ever happen. And as being a leader and being leaders, we understand that we're not going to make everybody happy. So some people tonight who may be happy, you may not be happy a month from now. There may be things we cannot avoid in terms of moving forward with this ordinance. But I want to thank you tonight, as I said before, quite an education.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. I would like to move to table that motion.
So moved.
I moved it, you seconded it. I moved it, you seconded it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Table supersedes the motion on the table.
No.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to table it to the next meeting, and we'll see where we are. If we can't do it, we can always table it to a future meeting, but I think we need to keep it on and keep moving ahead. That would be mine, to table it until March 19th.
Right.
Did you want to say something?
I want to think about what your motion is. So we're gonna republish this for the 19th, at which time we're gonna have some additional discussion.
Yes.
So this
It's going to go on for.
If I may make a suggestion,
Yes, vote it down.
why don't you table it to the first meeting in April and list it for discussion?
Good idea. I'm going to change my motion to the first meeting, April 2nd, table it to April 2nd, and put it on for discussion on March 19th.
Oh, wait, what is put on for discussion? Is it the same thing?
No.
Well,
There's no voting.
Okay.
So we'll be discussing this ordinance as written.
No.
No.
Oh, that's right, because it would have to be amended.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Yeah.
what I thought was going to happen was that at the next meeting, there would be a discussion of the ordinance and there would be proposed amendments to the ordinance.
Right.
At the meeting of March the 19th.
And then, okay, so the meeting on March 19th, we discuss it, agree on ordinances. It would be rewritten, republished for the second, and then we would vote on it at the second.
So why not vote it down tonight?
I think voting it down sends a message.
Sends a message that we're not in favor of it.
Right, inconsistent with what you've said tonight.
Right.
Mayor, aggregation is on for April 2nd.
Yes.
So
Just a point of personal privilege, I guess. I think two members of the Township Committee are going to be absent from the second meeting in April unless we reschedule it. So whether you're going to be able to pass that ordinance on that date is doubtful.
It would be April 2nd. I think we will.
Table it to April.
Table it to April 2nd, a discussion on March 19th with amendments that we would agree to, and then it would be republished. It can't be republished, though.
You're correct. If it were going to come on for final, it would come on the second meeting in April. But I don't see how you avoid that.
Right, you're right.
Okay, so the only thing I can suggest is that if in fact you come up with them, you can then put it on to
May.
Exactly. You have to have discussion.
Right.
You have to have proposals.
Right.
Okay, and I think just tabling it doesn't make.
Let's put it on for discussion on the 19th and action on the April 2nd. And you're seconding that, Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Please call the roll on the table till April 2nd.
Point of question. So is it on for final on April 2nd or
No,
for first?
First. Okay. Well, it's on for final again, but it'll be amended.
On
That's how
April
it'll work,
2nd.
yes.
So amended for final.
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be on for final, there'll be a public hearing, it'll be amended, and then it'll be either April 19th, or no, April 16th or May.
Correct.
For final. Sorry, folks, a little sausage making. Okay, so I'll go through it again. It's on for discussion at the next meeting. If we can come up with some amendments that we would instruct Mr. Desiderio to revamp the ordinance, then on the second, we would consider that for as an amendment to this. This stays as it is right now until we amend it. And then we would decide whether we feel, well, if there's no one going to be there on the 19th, we would probably have to push it off to May. I think we all five of us have to be here.
I'd do it in May.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So on the motion to table to this ordinance to April 2nd.
Mr. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lindberg?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, so the ordinance is tabled till April 2nd. We're going to work on this, and we're going to be discussing it again on March 19th. Most likely, action won't happen until the first meeting in May, which I'm not sure what that date is, but it's the first Tuesday in May.
We take a 3-minute?
Take a 5-minute break. Okay, we're going to get started. We're on item number 10.
Organized here.
Bagel.
Introduction of
Smokes. What do we?
new ordinance, Mayor, ordinance number 2942-19. It's an ordinance to create a charitable trust fund, Maplewood Cares. This ordinance will create a trust fund for the receipt of contributions to be used for the benefit of Township of Maplewood residents in need of assistance.
Mr. McGehee, you want to introduce this on introduction?
Sure. My pleasure, Mayor. I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on March 19th.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Item number 11.
Mayor, item 11, introduction of new ordinance, ordinance number 2947-19. An ordinance to further amend ordinance 2901-18. This ordinance will increase the composition of the Maplewood Community Board on Police from 6 voting members to 7 voting members, and will give further parameters for the member between the ages of 16 and 21.
Mr. Mayor, I move this ordinance, I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on March 19th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Item 12, also on introduction, ordinance number 2948-19. It's an ordinance to direct the installation of a stop sign on Creston Avenue at its intersection with Florida Street. This ordinance will direct the installation of a stop sign on Creston Avenue at its intersection with Florida Street.
Ms. Adams, you
Mayor, I
introduce.
move this passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and hearing to be held on March 19th.
Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams? Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Item 13, Mayor, also an introduction of new ordinance, ordinance number 2949-19. An ordinance to direct the installation of a stop sign on Plymouth Place at its intersection with Essex Road. This ordinance will direct the installation of a stop sign on Plymouth Place at its intersection with Essex Road.
Mayor, I move the passage of this ordinance on its first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and hearing to be held on March 19th.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Item 14, Mayor, also an introduction of new ordinance, ordinance number 2950-19. An ordinance to amend Chapter 181 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Noise. This ordinance will implement certain changes to the existing noise ordinance.
Yes, it's on me, sorry. I move the passage of this ordinance on its first reading, publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on March 19th.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Item 15, Mayor, also an introduction, ordinance number 2951-19. An ordinance to further amend the classification of employment positions within the Township of Maplewood and to establish salary ranges for employees. This ordinance will revise classification of employment positions and salaries within the Township of Maplewood, consistent with the revision of the table of organization established within the Township of Maplewood.
I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held March 19th.
Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you.
Item 16, Mayor, also an introduction of new ordinance number 2952-19. An ordinance to amend Chapter 204 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Transfer of Property. This ordinance will classify contradictory provision of the existing ordinance.
Mayor, I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and hearing to be held on March 19th.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Adams? Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. On item number 17, we have two discussion items. The first is the zoning permit application. Mr. Daffis?
Thank you, Mayor. This is something that came to us for our consideration out of the Code Enforcement Committee upon recommendation from Len Mandola, Buildings and Zoning Official, and Community Services Director, Annette De Palma. We currently do not have a zoning permit application process. What we have right now can be most diplomatically described as informal, very with secrecy. Someone goes to the buildings department and asks a question, and we have no way of verifying that information, following up with them, knowing who we're talking to. Is it the owner? Is it the realtor? Is it the contractor? So this is an opportunity to be a little bit more accurate and to better serve our community and track the information that comes in and out of our buildings department. This way, we would have someone fill out an application with respect to their specific property, and they could therefore give us an idea of what they want to do, if it's a question that has to do as a matter of right, or if it needs to be directed to the planning board or to the zoning board. We could just basically handle inquiries better. Other surrounding communities have a similar process in place. We would be following that procedure that other towns currently do. So that is and I understand that we need to do this by ordinance. Is that right, Mr. Desiderio?
That is correct.
So, right.
So let me give you an example of something that happened today.
Okay.
We have a situation where we have a tenant who has leased space on Springfield Avenue, started construction, and stopped. For a while, there was paper on the windows. We got the paper off. But you look in there, and the place is in the middle of construction. We can't find the tenant. We know who the owner is.
Right.
So I asked Code if they could go through the file and find it, and they were able to find a number on a permit for the person who found that. We don't know who it is. It's just some entity.
Right.
I call the number, it's a machine, don't know if they're ever going to call me back. So this would be a perfect paper trail for us to be able to follow up on stuff like that. Right. In addition, oftentimes people come in and ask for zoning questions, and this week we're having meetings with two of those types of people who came in and asked zoning questions. This is a capture form also.
Right.
So we'd be able to capture that information, and we were just lucky that Annette was able to get those two people there that time. So this will be to make it better. The one thing I do question is, since this is something that we haven't charged for in the past and now we're charging, do we have to charge 50 or can we reduce that to 25 to start out?
Or do we have to charge anything? I had a conversation with Ms. De Palma this morning about this in preparation for this evening, and she is looking into it because we are uncomfortable to charge for something that we've up to now have not been charging, although, the information and the service that we would be providing would be much improved than what we're offering now. Ms. De Palma is looking into whether or not this is the kind of fee that may be absorbed by the construction permit, which does have a zoning permit aspect to it. So it could be something that's already being paid for. But yes, I would be in agreement of charging as, a lesser amount than the $50 that other towns charge.
Well, we know what I don't know what other towns charge. We know what South Orange charges. We don't know what other towns charge.
I think Milburn charges 50, but I can't verify that. Ms. Viveros?
I gave Annette an example, even Woodbridge Township charges a nominal fee of $25, so I think something like that would be a first start.
Yeah, I would charge 25.
25
just charge 25 and get it. I think there is a value here, and somebody coming in who's asking us to do work essentially that they're going to rely on.
Sure.
I think it's fine to charge $25.
Mr. Desiderio, did you have any comments?
The ordinance is drafted. Mr. Palmer has it. She's going to review it. We can have it for introduction at the next meeting or discussion, whatever your pleasure is.
Are you prepared to move on it at the next meeting?
Yes.
25, all right?
25 is fine for me.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so we'll put it on for the next meeting introduction at 25.
Fine.
Okay?
Great, thank you.
Second item on discussion is the pop-up pocket park at 1866-72 Springfield. You got information twice from me on stuff. If you're okay with this, if you can authorize us to do negotiations with the owner, then we'll move forward with it.
Absolutely, Mayor. This is
Okay.
something I brought up last year about trucks, and it was well received by Springfield Avenue Partnerships.
Okay. Can we get a motion on the consent agenda?
Second.
Any questions, any comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, public comment. Does anyone want to address the Township Committee?
Jim Nathanson, 33 Durand Road. Very briefly, I was interested in the ordinance on first reading for Chapter 181, the noise ordinance, and I tried to find something about it online, couldn't find it. I went over to the town clerk's office, and Ms. Fritzen informed me that ordinances on the agenda for first reading are not on the website. And apparently there's some sort of a website problem. I'm not aware of what it is, but I'm requesting that ordinances on the agenda for first reading.
So when the agenda is put out, isn't there the whole document that gets put out on Friday on the website?
With backup?
With backup?
Yes.
So the ordinance is on Friday?
No, you told me it wasn't there.
No, there's a section in there that says ordinances and resolutions. It's not there. But it's on the agenda that we put on the website on the Friday before the meeting.
With the backup?
In that.
Well, I could be wrong. I didn't see it. Anyway, Ms. Fritzen gave me a copy of it. And I would just request that on something where there's an amendment, that black line versions be provided so you can see where the changes are.
That's up to you. I don't really think that's appropriate, but if you want me to.
Well,
yeah, this is.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes. No, go ahead, Mr. Desiderio.
I send you black line versions, for your convenience. If you want to circulate the black line versions, that's up to you. But I don't do it on every one.
Right.
I do it only on those where I think I need to bring it to your attention.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of doing the black line, and it gets too confused for people to read. They're hard enough to read.
Okay. All right. I'll go back and look to see. I did not see it on the, when I went to the agenda, I did not see it.
I don't see it either. I mean, I just pulled it up. I mean, I used to see it.
Solve that, will you? Solve it. Make sure it gets up every Friday, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because it gets emailed to us, so I don't look for it on the website, and I just went and looked for it, and I expected it to be there, and it wasn't there.
It's supposed to be there. The whole thing's supposed to be there.
So thank you.
Okay, 2019 budget discussion. Mr. Desiderio, I think you're bailing at the appropriate time. Mr. Kaloja, you're going to be right here within striking distance.
So this is the newest
I think he was going to tell us.
That you just gave us. This is the one, right?
The two-pager.
Yeah, the two back and side it.
Okay. So what would be helpful, Mr. Cloutier?
Sir.
You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Tesser.
What would be helpful is if you went over everything that you've sent to us in the memo of March 1st and what you gave us today.
Okay.
No, just tell us what documents they are.
So the document that you have before you now, as we continue to clean up the original documents that we've been working with for the last month and a half, is the expenditure sheet.
Right, that's the blue one here?
Yes, two-sided.
Okay, now does that replace the one that we got last?
That is correct. This one now foots out properly and is based on the state adopted or approved budget.
Okay, this is the one that says NJ Fast FCOA code.
Yes.
As they all say that. That's right. That's not helpful. That's not helpful. They all have numbers on them?
Yes. They do.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then you also sent us a memo on March 1st?
Yes, sir.
And then you also sent us revenue on March 1st?
Which we are still working on, yes.
So is that
yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
It's probably a good.
What do you want to go over first?
Whatever the township committee wants to go over.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because as I said to you, I sent you an email last night at 12:02 a.m. this morning. Because I was looking at this stuff, and where do we find the total appropriation for 2019?
On the new sheets that you were handed out, if you flip over to the back page, all the way at the bottom, it has a line that says total general appropriations. The first column is a comparison of 18 and 19 salary and wages. The second column is a comparison of other expenses for 18 and 19. And then as we move over into the titled portion that is in black instead of blue, you will see the total general appropriations for our budgets from 18 and 19.
So the 2019 total appropriations, $46,692,450.
Correct, which.
And that's a 3.75% increase over 2018.
Correct.
And that changed from the previous amount, which was 5.73%, is that
Yes.
right?
5.23. And what changed there? What changed mostly was the 2018 budget.
That is correct. Correct? That is correct. Our issue that we've been having is our two budgets are not aligned. So what the state approved and what we have in our admin system doesn't match, and we've spent.
So tell us what the admin system
I'm sorry.
is.
The admin system is a municipal accounting system that we use in order to administer the budget. So when we send the budget down to the state, it looks very much like the document that you have before you now. The state is only interested in salary and wages and other expenses. They don't really care about line items that go underneath it. We, however, do care about what line items are being spent, and so the admin system breaks it down into smaller pieces. Our issue is the budget that was adopted by the governing body last year and was then sent down to the state, which then approved our budget, did not match what we had in Edmonds. And there were some significant differences. The other issue that we were experiencing with what feels like a moving target, I share in your frustration. What we're dealing with is a lot of budget transfers that were done over the course of the last 2 months of last year and over the first 2 months of this year that were necessary in order to bring into alignment what the state approved and what we had set up in our system. So when we ran our original numbers out of an Edmunds system, which should be simple reports that produced numbers, we saw these wild gyrations and these $500,000 increases in budget line items because our system was not set up to go with the adopted and approved budget by the state. So this document is now pulling strictly from the state document, and we finally have achieved numbers that foot out. Tears of joy down a CFO's face.
So whereas our last sheet had the police department at $600,000 increase for this year or so, this is only 123,000, which is more in line with all the others.
Which is now accurate, yes.
That was one of my questions last night. I couldn't figure out how we had that huge increase in police. Okay, so we know that we need to come up with $46,692,450 on top of that. And where are we getting that? Because I'm seeing 2019 at general revenue of $43 million.
Correct. And therein lies our issue that we are still working on. So gratefully, you had a lengthy meeting, which
Could you put that a little closer?
Yes, sir.
Because you're
so gratefully
so soft-spoken. You know, we want soft-spoken. We want to hear you.
So gratefully, you guys had a relatively long meeting, which gave us an opportunity to continue to work on the revenue side, which has the same issues that we experienced with the expenditure side and the state-approved budget versus the admin system. So we're at this point in time where we should have that document fixed and aligned so that you'll be looking at an accurate revenue side of the budget. So you will be getting a corrected sheet to what you're looking at now. We are waiting on the auditors to confirm some numbers that we have in terms of added assessment collections, receipt from delinquent taxes last year, and verification of the amount of fund balance that we regenerated this year. And then once we have all those numbers, we'll have a fuller picture of what we're going to need to bring to you, to, as you said, Mayor, raising $46.6 million.
I think those are all have to be revised because your memo is based on
previous
numbers.
But I'm assuming the potential actions might still, the numbers might be off, but
The only numbers in the memo that would be off is the last column. But the dollar reduction and the rate reduction would remain the same, and the total budget dollar reduction would remain the same as well.
right, so everything in the chart would remain the same.
With the exception of the last column, because that last column is coming off a starting number that we still need to verify.
But the dollars are the same.
But the dollars in the dollar reduction and in the budget dollar reduction would be accurate.
So when I read this, are we saying that we should, like for DPW, for example, that we should use the storm cleanup? Just continue to take that out of the budget and use overtime cost?
Yes. One of the things, and I guess I'm grateful that I'm not going to need to go through this exercise again because the state has shuffled the deck in terms of how they want us to electronically submit budgets. So we're going to be rebuilding the admin system to match the state's FAST system, and we're not going to run into this problem next year. To answer your question, one of the things that we're doing in the new budget is we're peeling off how we charge overtime based on, so Storm is probably a good example of that. Right now, everything funneled through that account, and it didn't necessarily help us in terms of payroll and where we were charging it. So you've got Shade Tree that may be helping to do snow removal, and we have roads that are obviously doing it, and parks that are out there doing it. We're going to, for this year, readjust that so that we're charging those overtime line items in those specific divisions within the DPW to better track how we're spending overtime. The purpose for this particular line item is historically what towns would do is budget, in this case, $40,000 for overtime, and then whatever was left over at the end of the year, a resolution would go in front of the governing body. We would cancel out the balance of that, and we would transfer it into a trust fund. And then we'd have a storm trust fund so that in a year where we have 12 storms in 3 months, and we've burnt through all the overtime that we've set up standard in the DPW's salary and wages, we would be able to draw from the trust fund in order to make sure that we're not overexpending balances.
And, do we have anything in the trust fund at the moment for the storm trust fund?
So our storm trust fund just recently received a FEMA check, and so yes, we were able to, in our storm trust fund for overtime, we currently are sitting at $73,000.
73?
Prior to that, when we began this budget process, we had $2,000.
Right, because we didn't put anything in last year.
Correct.
Right. So we have 73, which is more than we had. So we could take this 40,000 out.
I would be comfortable with taking this 40,000 out, yes.
Because we have, and then we're due to get another FEMA check this year.
Correct.
And we've been approved for that. And I think the only difference is the $25,000 gap. It's going to be like 130 or 155 or something like that.
Yes. And so that FEMA check, we
Going
currently,
to the storm trust.
in the storm trust, other expenses, so that we've got one side that handles overtime, we have the other side that handles salt.
Right.
The salt balance right now is zero.
We have enough salt to get through. Well, plus we have it in our operating budget to buy salt too.
That is correct.
Right.
Go through, on the record too, other than this memo, the explanation of the joint meeting, capital obligation and bonding for that instead, and taking it out as an expense.
So the governing body, back in October, passed a bond ordinance that allowed the municipality to borrow up to $775,000 in order to pay for our obligation of a capital project that the joint sewer is performing over the next couple of years. We were at the time offered, just like every other participating town, to fund through the joint meeting. Our obligation, if we accepted that offer, was $910,000. So by funding it on our own and only needing to borrow $775,000, we generated a savings of $135,000. The original plan last year was to, and the governing body adopted an ordinance to charge an additional $37 for the next 3 years. That $37 would generate enough revenue to pay off $775 or $775,000 over the course of the next 3 years. One of the options that we have available to us is that we can, instead of borrowing only $500,000 and paying off $275,000, is to borrow the full amount, which would then free up the sewer fee that we're charging on the $37 to anticipate as revenue in our operating budget. That will obviously eat into our $135,000 savings because we're now borrowing a significantly larger amount of money. That being said, I'm fairly certain that we're not going to see $135,000 worth of interest. And so although it's going to cut into our savings, we're still going to produce a savings by the decision that the governing body made back in October, and it will provide us with little tax relief this year.
But right now, based on this memo that you gave us, we're talking about an 11% increase in taxes.
Yes.
The average.
Yes.
Which is way too much.
Yes.
And when, this Sunday in the Ledger, they come out with last, statewide, and here we are, good old Maplewood, with the 28th largest tax rate, tax charge in the state.
Yes, my CFO friends made sure I saw that article.
And so I understand very clearly what you're saying here in the memo, that there are certain things we should not do and certain things that we can do as far as best practices, as far as building our base for the future. The problem is we're sinking right now. And just like we implemented cost cuts that our administrator did, she made significant cost cuts, as you point out. Essentially, if you take out the cost drivers, we're below what we spent last year.
Correct.
And, we've gotten, this is the year we should be doing fine because we got $20 million in new ratables on the books.
Correct. That's one of the numbers that we're waiting for verification from our auditors to see what number came in. So this number will be going down once we have that verification and can plug it in.
Okay, because we have not had this is a situation we have never had this kind, except in a revaluation year, of course, because it all goes up. But a year-to-year increase, this is finally paying off all these things that are getting built. So there's got to be some relief here. And so I guess the question is, when do we have to adopt this budget?
What's that? We have plenty of room at this point, Mayor, to introduce the budget and then adopt it. And the only requirement at this point in time is to introduce it by well, statutorily it's in February, but they pushed it out until the end of March. So because they pushed out the annual financial statements as well. So we fully expect that we would not need to introduce a budget until the next regularly scheduled meeting, probably the first meeting in April.
But you're saying not the 19th?
No.
Okay, because I would prefer to introduce it as late as possible so we can get these numbers.
I completely agree.
Right. So that would be April 2nd. Okay. All right. So we really can't do much more. I mean, we can, so I don't want to deplete all your options here, but I certainly want to use a lot of them, depending on, that would be where I would come from, depending on what the numbers look
Until we can verify those numbers exactly, it's difficult to make an informed decision if we don't know exactly the impact of the added assessments that you're talking about. I agree.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion? If we're going to review this material, things: one,
make it bigger.
Two, get it a few more days in advance. Personal, I don't feel comfortable voting on anything right now because I've just seen this for the most part. You know, so I feel very uncomfortable, and I'm a kind of analytical kind of guy. So we can get this at least 3 to 4 days in advance.
Sure.
And then also your agenda, but can we have this at the top of the agenda? And then this will refresh and focus on this.
Yeah.
And then just put this at the very top. Yep. Whatever it is.
You know, here's the situation now.
Do a Saturday.
We got plastic bags on April 2nd. We've got energy aggregation now on April 2nd, and we got the budget on April 2nd. So we need to look at another time. That's the difficulty of doing budget discussions at these meetings. It's hard to drill down.
No, I
on
agree.
these
I think perhaps it would be prudent to just schedule a
Saturday. So we'll have to have a conversation because it may not be possible for all of us to be here on Saturdays, but we'll see. Because I'm actually gone for a good part.
An alternate Tuesday night on an off Tuesday
So let's
night.
see. We're not going to do that now. We'll figure out what to do. But clearly, we're not getting all the information we need to know.
Correct.
Before, you know, now that we know it's April 2nd that we have to introduce, we can make all the decisions before then and just introduce it.
Yes.
So that means we need to have a meeting before, but that means we've got to get that information pretty quickly, like in the next week.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, we're all very busy, you know, multiple jobs. I'm willing to move my schedule around to find incremental date at night or on a weekend. So we focus solely on this. This is so important that I'd rather just have a meeting about this and all the other stuff to the side. This is our tax dollars, our residents' tax dollars. It's too vital for us to put this at the end of a 2-hour, 3-hour meeting.
Okay. So just to be clear, because we also got a couple other documents here. We got the capital budget and we got the personnel requests.
Yeah.
And do you want to say anything about them, Ms. Viveros? They reflect our last discussion,
They reflect
right?
our last discussion, so they are where they stand. So
The one thing that I would like us to do is, and if we don't have to do it tonight, although if we could, is to look at the capital budget and make sure we're okay with it. But if people haven't looked at it, then we need to put it on for the next meeting. Because we can move the capital budget before we adopt the regular budget.
Which one are you looking at?
Which one are you looking at?
Came yesterday.
There's an email that Sonia sent with the capital budget and the personnel.
I was just looking at the stuff that was printed out.
No, it came yesterday.
Budget update.
Well,
All
I
right,
would like
forget
to
it.
look at
Forget
that
it.
more.
Maybe
Forget it.
Friday, actually.
Forget it. Okay, we're done with the budget discussion?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're administrative reports. Ms. Viveros.
Mayor, actually, the Assistant Township Administrator has a report that I'd like to.
Okay.
Glenn Mikulowski, Assistant Township Administrator. When we met recently for the Economic Development meeting, you asked me to look at some Google Analytics. When I did, I noticed that the Jitney was most highly trafficked page on our website. So something that's been on my radar, low on the priority list, was implementing GTFS into the Jitney schedule so residents could access Jitney information from Google Maps, which is accomplished through a free partnership with Google, but involves some data entry. So I've kind of moved that up on my priority list, and I know that Sonia mentioned that Mr. McGeehee had brought it up in the past. So the goal is residents will be able to view Jitney schedules in real time from Google Maps on their phone or from a planner app on the website. What I didn't anticipate was how much data entry work that was. So it'd be something I have to work through, or if anyone knows a volunteer on any committees who has a software engineering background, I can kind of delegate some of it to them. But it's really just converting that to, and I'll explain a little bit what GTFS is. It's a data format industry standard for fixed route public transportation. So if you operate a bus service that has designated stops at designated times, you convert it to a certain data format and Google Maps can read it. So it's free. The only thing they want is your data, and we just need some time to put it together.
What's the data you need to put in?
Basically, you just convert stop times and route names and everything to the format that gets read through Google Maps. So I just have to sit down. There's some industry standard you just got to convert the stop times to. But and it'll enable residents to do trip planning on the fly. Like if they're running late and they just want to pull up Google Maps, they can see which jitney they need to catch. If there's a train delayed and the NJ Transit is using real-time train schedules, it'll accommodate that change too. So you'll be able to do it without having to look at a map in a PDF form or whatever it is.
Cool.
Publicize it and try to find you some extra bodies. If you need some engineers, you said?
Anyone who has a software background, software engineering background, coding. I mean, it's a very simple text format. It's just intensive.
The chair of our planning board, Jerry Ryan, teaches that at NJIT.
Yeah, I'd have to get one of his students.
Then he would probably be able to do it a lot faster than I can.
You can contact him through Adele
Jerry
upstairs, and he can probably help us find somebody or give us some guidance.
Yeah, I mean, I have a spreadsheet guidebook where you input the information. It's just converting it to that format, and then you'll be able to just pull it up.
He can just assign it to his students, right?
Class project.
Okay, that's it.
Glenn, thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Viveros? Mr. Desiderio?
I have no report, Mayor.
Ms. Fritzen?
Just one item. That two of our polling places look like they will be moving to the emergency management facility at 129 Boyden. And I don't want to say the districts yet, but it'll be one district from Clinton to relieve some of the stress of the number of voters that we have there, and one district from the Maplewood Community Center. I'm following up and following through with that with the county, and they accepted our recommendation.
Okay, so one from Clinton School and one from D Hart are going to move to?
Yes.
Okay. The old rescue squad building?
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't want to name the districts yet.
Understand.
That's all that I have. Thank you.
Ms. Fritzen, when are the nominating papers due for Maplewood Township Committee?
Mr. McGee asked me that same question. Yeah, I wonder why.
I'm curious.
I'll get an answer to you. I have to look it up. You're in. Right now, it's way early.
It's not personally relevant to me this year. I can't run for 2 seats.
I will advise you all tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Or Cory Booker, you could.
Right.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Just for the record, we did receive the tax collector's monthly report and the chief financial officer budget report. Okay, reports from elected officials. Ms. Adams.
As we know, it's Women's History Month, so we have everybody is welcome for International Women's Day celebration at Fox and Falcon in South Orange on Valley Street. That's this Thursday, March 7th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. In the Essex Bar and Dining Room, which is on the Valley Street side of Fox and Falcon. So come and celebrate. That's the best kind of event to go to. March 16th is movie night at SoPac Loft. It's a league of their own, and last year this was really popular. We had Hidden Figures last year, and we even had one of the young stars of Hidden Figures came to the movie and done her sleeping bag next to me and watched, and it was fun. So we have lots of junk food, and encourage everybody to bring sleeping bags and your kids, male and female, and enjoy that. Then there's events at the Duran Hedden House on March 17th. There's a daily public exhibition of art at the South Orange Village Hall. Then the Ideas Festival kicks off with a March 27th event on women's sexual health. Intellectual Salon we're doing at the Maplewood Senior Building at 106 Burnett is March 30th from 2:30 to 6. And the staged reading of Miss Perkins is March 31st from 4 to 6 at the Parlor at the Woodland. And then we go into an interview with Nancy Solomon on Monday, April 1st at Memorial Library as part of the Ideas Festival. And then one other one on April 3rd, and I know that goes into April, but it's What Even Was the Tea Party with Khadijah Costley White. So just check out somawomen.org for our events that are coming up to celebrate Women's History Month, and that's all I have there.
What was that website again, Ms. Adams?
somawomen.org. Thank you.
McGehee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. This Saturday at 7 o'clock at the Woodland is the Green Bean Gala. There are only 18 tickets left. On Sunday, there were 30. It's selling out like crazy. It's a wonderful cause for men.
I bought one of those.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Awesome.
I bought it all.
Anybody buy tickets?
What do I have to wear? You have to get really, really dressed
Wear a little
up.
green, just a little green.
Oh, green.
Green, have fun with it. It's going to be a wonderful event. I'm excited about it. But most importantly, it's raising funds for men meeting essential needs with dignity. Here in Essex County, we have 2 food pantries in the area in South Orange at Our Lady of Sorrows and Maplewood at St. Joe's. I want to also congratulate the MMS students and faculty for a wonderful musical they put on last weekend, The Wizard of Oz. It was a great time had by all. You have 813 kids at MMS, over 260 participate in the musical. It's a high cadence or high amount of youth that participate, from crew to stage to acting and so forth, ensemble. That being said, to keep on that theme, this weekend and next weekend, our Columbia High School will be doing Mary Poppins. And for those of you who like musicals and like Broadway, for a small fee, you can actually see Broadway right here in Maplewood, South Orange. It's unbelievable. It'll be my 5th year going. I went 5 years ago, kind of like, I don't know, I'll go see, and I'm a big Broadway person, and I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. So there are tickets available. Go to Columbia High School website, find the tickets, and get them. On the 17th, we have the 5K for St. Patty's, a good time had by all. I want to also recognize a job well done by our Public Works team on Sunday night. I went out with them because I promised. We were out there for 4 hours from 10:30 to 2 a.m. or 10 to 2 a.m. And yeah, they do a great job. And when you wake up in the morning, you see your streets are clean. Now I get to see what they do. So kudos to Public Works. And I also want to congratulate my colleague, Ms. Adams, for starting off the month celebration for women with the wonderful picture on the front steps. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thanks for wearing your linen pants.
On a cold day.
Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I also congratulate Ms. Adams for getting us started in what seems to be a fulsome, exciting Women's History Celebration Month. And thank you for all the wonderful events that you personally have been planning yourself. I'm sorry to miss Thursday night, and I'm sorry to miss the Green Bean Gala on Saturday night, as I will be out of town starting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I also salute the mayor for a great Black History Month in February rather. It was terrific. There were a lot of great events. Looking forward to Pride in June. We will be hosting, the mayor and I will be hosting right here in this hall next Thursday, 3/14 at 10 a.m., our annual Pride planning meeting. I've done a very broad outreach to various constituents, community groups, organizations in and outside of Maplewood to bring everybody together, to collaborate better, to help each other out with our events, to get on the same calendar and make it the best that we can for our community. It's really important. Also on the 14th, right after our Pride planning meeting, we'll be heading over to the Senior Center to St. Patty's Day. Also another wonderful annual thing that we do at the Senior Center there with our seniors. A lot of fun. Please join us. That begins at 11 a.m., sharp. I want to salute the Community Coalition on Race. I got a sneak peek at their 2019 demographic study the other night at a trustee meeting, and I was very, very impressed. They've taken an even deeper dive this time around into our demographics, and they're focusing specifically on issues related to affordability, housing issues, housing insecurity, and of course, backed by popular demand is the school data that they do so well. Also, this year, for the first time, they're expanding their Conversations on Race series, which is very, very popular, to youth, which is important. Oftentimes, we don't hear from our youth enough. They tend to silo within their groups, and it's great that they're doing outreach in that regard to hear from them. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Lindbergh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been able to cross out a few of my items as my colleagues have mentioned them, so I won't repeat the good words already said. Pool registration is now open for the Maplewood Community Pool. Act now, get your early bird pricing. That's only good through April 2nd. So sign up early and save some money, but we hope to see all of you out at the pool this summer. I want to provide some more public appreciation and acknowledgement for our DPW in a meeting that I had with Mr. Roth and others from the school district. He mentioned how improved the coordination was around weather events over the last couple months with both the South Orange and Maplewood Departments of Public Works, and how the school district has really appreciated the way the town's DPWs have communicated with the school district. So kudos to them for that. Wanted to thank the Recreation Department and all of the volunteers who made the Sensory Friendly Movies event happen at the Woodland a few weeks back. We saw 2 Muppet movies, and there were art projects and lots of great activities for the kids. There was a visit and photo op with Kermit in between the films, and it was really well attended. It was a day, it was President's Day weekend, so the kids were off from school, and and I think I know I personally went thinking I'll go and say hello to some people and maybe we'll stay for the first movie, and I ended up being there all day because my daughter wouldn't leave. So we had a really good time. So great event, good attendance, and hopefully we'll see more events like that, particularly sensorily friendly events that are open to everyone in our community, especially our youth with special needs. 2 issues that go a little broader than Maplewood that I also wanted to raise. One, I was really pleased to hear so many in Trenton today talking in favor of the millionaire's tax. It seemed like that was something that was backburnered for a little bit, and I was disappointed with that. And now it seems that it's coming back this year, which is good. It's something that I support, and I hope that our elected officials. I know Assemblyman McKeon has already gone on record as saying he supports it. So I hope other elected officials in this area do the same, and we can move that forward, because there's so many budget issues this state needs to fix, and that's one of the good ways that we can go about it. And speaking of budget issues this state needs to fix, New Jersey Transit, I think, we need to be back in contact with Transit and our elected officials on this, because the nightmares have just been continuing. I heard from a lot of people who, I worked from home yesterday, but a lot of people who had to make it in, including my wife and a lot of our neighbors, found that at least in the morning rush, something like 3/4 of the trains were canceled due to manpower issues. New Jersey Transit just doesn't have enough people, enough engineers to run the trains. And obviously that really came to a head yesterday, but we're still noticing lots of canceled trains, lots of combined trains, and it's a problem. So, I know there have been efforts made, and they've put Band-Aids on a few things, but, we really bore the brunt. Our line bore the brunt. I think of the 20 canceled trains during the morning rush yesterday, I think 12 or 13 of them were on our line, and most of those are trains that usually stop in Maplewood. And I think between the 7:27 train and like the 9 o'clock train, there were 2 or 3 canceled trains in a row for Maplewood, and a lot of folks were stranded and couldn't get to work yesterday. So so that's something that I hope we continue to keep the pressure on and address. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just following up on that, I hope folks use the bus. My guess is the buses must have been full yesterday, because as the trains were canceled, people should have gone to the buses. Now those buses, they told me the buses are through the end of March. I think we'll make a play to keep them going, because they were supposed to have solved this, and clearly they haven't. Now there are 4 classes of engineers that are supposed to graduate in 2019. So hopefully those folks are on board, but even when they're on board, there's a training period where they can actually be left alone. So we'll see what happens there. I just got a few things. Let me just continue on the governor's budget. Mr. Daffis and I were on a briefing this morning. We heard from the governor's office and Ms. Adams. So some of us were on the briefing call. It was brief, and it wasn't that exciting. It was kind of boring, but there was some good news. I think one good thing is that the governor has negotiated some health benefit savings or health care savings with CWA. And I think they're pretty close to an agreement of a 4-year contract. So that might be something we want to look at, because we have our own negotiations with CWA this year and the other unions, so we can take a look at that. But I think there's another $100 million going into transit, no fare increase, so those are all good news. It's all good news for us. Certainly the millionaire's tax, I think we should maybe consider supporting it after we take a look at what it is, and think about that. Just a couple other things. On March 12th from 7 to 8, I'll have my office hours here at Town Hall. Just want to remind the Township Committee that on March 19th, we will have the Planning Board recommendation on the Baker Street redevelopment plan. So that's our next meeting. We were at our next meeting to have the aggregation bid, but that has been pushed back. We finally got the RFP out. It took a little longer for DEP review, or BPU review, I'm sorry. But the RFP was in the paper today. We are going to get those price proposals back at 1 p.m. on April 2nd. And that evening, we will have a recommendation to move forward with the aggregation. So it'll be April 2nd, not May 19th. March 19th. And lastly, just on Black History Month, we had terrific terrific participation this year, both in groups and in people coming to the events. We got from the Maplewood Arts and Culture website for Black History Month, in 2018, we had 814 unique visitors. 2019, we had over 3,000 visitors. So it jumped up by 63%. Our visits jumped up by 70%, page views by 66%. So we were driving people to the events, to our websites, and I think it's a good model for us to think about as we have these events. I think it's very important to get the organizations out there engaged, feel that they own it, give them the support, give them the publicity, and let them run their programs. And it was a really terrific success this year. So with that, motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, we'll see you. Thank you.